Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. It's been a few weeks since we've been on the air. We had some reschedules. We had some other conflicts, but we are happy to be back for episode 326. We have a first-time guest along with would you call him a frequent guest?
At this point, yeah.
Yeah, whether it be remotely or in the garage. But we have a couple of gentlemen tonight, and happy to have them on. Looking forward to hearing from them. Before we do that, do want to thank our sponsors, as always. We appreciate all the support. First and foremost, you guys, patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. So that's going to be where you guys can do a monthly contribution. You can do a one-time contribution, whatever you'd like. If you want to do a one-time contribution, however, we appreciate you guys using Venmo at Bourbon and BS for that. Thank you for the thumbs up, Nate.
Sorry.
See that? Yeah. Control your hands, will you, please? Also want to thank Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. That's where we're based out of, and that's going to be where you can find some of the cigars. The ones we're smoking tonight are not quite available there, but there are other ones from Room 101 at Tinder Box at Easton and other cigars that our guest has had his hands on as well. We'll talk about that, but check out Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. Also, Altadis USA, appreciate the continued support. You can see some of those brands behind us: Monte Cristo, Romeo Julieta, H. Upman, Aging Room, among others. And we've got a guest from Altadis coming on in 2 weeks. David's going to be here in the garage, and we're looking forward to smoking with him some special stuff. And also the BS Cigar Company available now. The gold is made by Plasencia. The silver is also made by Espinosa Cigars, and come in various sizes, all Nicaraguan blends. The gold is medium bodied. The silver is going to be medium plus with more pepper to it. So check those out. And if you guys like what you see on the screen as far as these 3/4 sleeves, check out buyjack.com/ below.
Oh.
Yeah, no, not the face. Buyjack.com/Bourbon and BS. If you guys want to get any of the swag for the BS Cigar Company for the show as well. There's some tees, there's some ladies V's, there's some 3/4 sleeves, and also we've got some hoodies on there in this fall here in the Midwest. So check them out.
By the time we wrap this up, it's going to be down to throw that hoodie on.
Possibly. Without further ado, we want to get you guys on there. And reminder, as always, any questions, go on the comment feed, especially on Facebook. That's where we're monitoring this, but it's also available on YouTube live currently. So let's bring on our guest of honor. Sorry, Jonathan. We got Matt Booth with us. How we doing?
What's up, guys? Man, I'm absolutely capital, man. How are you doing?
Very well, very well. Appreciate you coming on the show. First time on.
Look, man, I was wondering if we were ever going to have the opportunity to chat on Al Gore's worldwide internet.
Yeah, yeah.
It's been so long.
Do you
and
want
as I heard you,
oh.
I'll talk about a myriad of things we can chat about while we're in here, man. I mean, this is this conversation I'm sure will take a couple twists and turns, but I did overhear you.
Oh, it's awesome.
Oh,
I think he did it on purpose. It'll just cut Matt's feet. Jonathan, how are you, man? Jonathan Herring.
Oh, dude, great. Should I just continue on with what Matt would have said?
Sure. If you know where that is.
There's literally no way of predicting where that would have gone.
Absolutely.
There it is.
I understand.
Predicting what?
Where you would have gone with that. I was going to try to continue.
Oh, yeah. I think it cut me off for a minute, man.
It cut you off immediately, as you were about to make a point.
The AI knew he was talking smack about Al Gore.
Yeah, it's those filters, man.
It did. Did you see that? Did you see? They're like, hold on, Al Gore, and it just gave us a little delete nudge. It's like a little, like a cobra, a digital cobra strike.
It's almost as if they're throttling certain things.
Throttling.
We never get.
I've throttled a couple things in my day.
Perfect.
So I've heard.
Perfect. What was your favorite? No, just kidding. Tonight, we've got, like I said, Matt Booth on. Jonathan Herring is here. Jonathan's been in the garage. He's been on the show before. We are featuring a cigar tonight. It is the Room 101, and I hope this is the right name here. Hit and Run Redux. Jonathan, that's what we called this one, correct?
Redo.
I just call it Room 101, the Hit and Run.
Just Hit and Run? That's what it says on here, but I just...
it's just Hit and Run.
It's got your signature, and is that Caldwell?
That is the inscription of the mark of the long one.
Okay, got it.
Vertical Jones. You know
Vertical Jones.
You've heard of him.
Yeah,
maybe.
I met him.
It's a friend of mine. Nice.
And Matt,
A tri-country wealth tan he's working on right now is sensational.
Is that right?
Yeah. Like a crisp golden brown. Like not even a gentleman that golfs 4 times a week has the skin tone that man has right now.
Just unnaturally tan almost.
Good, but it's baked and layered by different
base.
countries. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Matt,
Yeah, he's spending a lot of time in Spain now, right? You got a house out there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I suppose.
He is definitely a worldly man. Matt, I don't know if you remember this. This is going back probably
not
10 plus years ago. You've been to the Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio before.
I have.
You came in, and it popped up on my Facebook memories just recently, so it had to be around this time of the year. You came in with Dan Burris.
Dan Burris, man.
You had that was when you were spiking your hair.
Yeah.
And so Brian Joyce, the owner of the Tinder Box, and myself, you came in with Dan Burris, and we were talking. I think at that time you were with Camacho, right? Or you were doing certain things with
Davidoff was distributing our brand at the time.
Room 101,
and they owned Camacho,
right? Which you had a little hand in, no? At one point, like as a personality or whatever you want to call it. You and Dicka and the guy who created Entourage, wasn't that? Am I thinking that?
Yeah,
correctly?
You are thinking that correctly, Rob Weiss. Yeah.
But yeah, I had an opportunity to meet you then. Like I said, you probably don't remember it, but it was funny that it came up on Facebook memories recently, and that's from, I bet you it was like at least 10 years ago.
Did we kiss when we met?
No, you and Dan were kind of closer.
Dan and I were okay. Yeah. I got you. Yeah, I don't recall. I was obviously.
I'll send you the picture. It was
okay.
It was a little weird for the middle of the afternoon, but it was fine. It was fine. So, Matt, if you don't mind, just a little background. So for our listeners that don't know your name, don't know Room 101, a little bit of the history, if you don't mind, to just kind of jumpstart this. We really appreciate it.
I mean, if let me try to get you some cliff notes, the highlight reel, right? So I got out of the Marine Corps Infantry in 2000 and relocated back or replanted myself back in Hollywood, and I was going to pursue music as a career, right, as a performing musician. And while I was there, I became very enchanted by this style of heavy sterling silver jewelry that I was seeing floating around on folks in the scene and whatnot. And I was led to ultimately meet the gentleman that I'm now a partner in his facility in downtown Los Angeles, where we've cast basically every piece from our jewelry collection from day one, 7th and Broadway. And I started delving into 3D design and jewelry design, and really started doing a deep dive into lifestyle collections, brands, right? And there were a lot of these super cool kind of underground uber luxury brands in Los Angeles at the time. And I started to look outside that were very inspiring, but I started to look outside LA, and I became familiar with a brand named Alfred Dunhill, which is a very proper and stoic gentleman's brand from, I mean, it's still active today. But in the 1960s, this was like, a complete reflection of the good life, multiple categories. This is like something that, a gentleman or gentle lady of leisure would sit in their private courtyard in Mayfair in London and sip their cognac and smoke one of their cigars while they waited for their, custom passport cover to be monogrammed so that they could catch, Pan Am to fucking New York and go kick it in New York for a couple of days. And I thought, wow, how sensationally erotic is that visual, right? And I said, how would a brand of this nomenclature appear? What is the Alfred Dunhill of 1965 look like by like 2025, right? Yeah. What does that look like? And how could I apply my touch to that framework to take what I'm doing outside of my first creative love after music, which was jewelry design, and really build a brand collective that, from what I could see in at that period of time, didn't exist, and And of course, along this, 20 plus year journey, I've been reminded many times why brands like that don't exist, because, the atmosphere of rules and regulations that are today did not exist in the 60s.
Mm.
And, so there are a lot of challenges that are present in the here and now that were not then. And, even, as a brand architect and, pushing the creative direction, of our brand, part of that creative direction also ends up having to be how the narrative is scripted and how our products are developed, and strategically how the brand is represented, across the categories. So we remain in line, remain compliant with, regulations internationally and here at home domestically. And, '09 saw the introduction of Room 101 cigars as a collaborative effort with Camacho, and ultimately led to brokering a distribution deal with the Davidonians for about a period of 8 years. And 17 saw the launch of Room 101 Gin. And,
Oh, yeah.
And although we make other ancillary products, the smoke, the drink, and the wear were the three main legs of the tripod that I wanted to realize from our brand. And so here we are.
Is there a leg of those that would be the strongest, do you think?
That's the fourth leg, as they call it.
That's for stability. Yeah, no,
it's sturdy. It actually just helps keep balance, really.
Sure.
Is what it does. Yeah, it's a balancing agent. I mean, look, they all play off each other and they all feed off each other, depending on which way, the wind blows. They're all up and down, right? So the one thing I would say without question is, when we entered the premium tobacco space with our brand concept, not only did it translate, I think, very well to the craft category within premium tobacco, specifically cigars, but we really hit magic. Like, I found a community and a culture that really felt like home, and we operate in all the businesses, and everybody's great that we deal with, but like, I've always felt like this was my home.
Yeah, and you had some crossover a little bit, if I recall, too. Not as a parent now, but when Zycar, I felt like was when in their heyday, you had some products through them. You had some
we did a
Zippo
private label
Armo
series.
cases. Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, you incorporated it. I was one of my at the time, I was really, really I got into cigars around, like, truly like regular cigar smoker, like 07, 08, right? When you were coming on the scene there shortly thereafter.
Yeah, man. There
And then
we
I
go.
started seeing this. I was like, so what's this? Like, he's a jewelry designer, and now he's getting into this. Like, I was still so new in it.
Mhm.
It was like, I thought it was a little bit of a boom, but maybe that was just a personal time in my life that I was getting into it. But then all of a sudden I started seeing some of the Zycar products coming out that you were doing with that. And then that armor, some of the armor cases that you did for Zippo that were just amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just the quality of it, the crossover was just really, really intriguing at that time, that you just kind of came at it from both angles.
The period of time that you're talking about, I refer to as the golden era of the boutique brands. It
That's
was a
absolutely
very,
right.
very magical time. And I think that anyone and anybody that was active in the game at that time, in that space, at one point or another, when we get together, this will come up, right?
Mhm.
Back in the day,
It's sad that that's back in the day.
I mean, look, bro, it is back in the day. I mean, considering that cigar years are more aggressive than dog years. I mean, I'm effectively now, as you stare at me, 150 years old.
Yeah, right.
I know
No, you
I
look
look
great.
sensational for that. It's the
You do.
lotion, really, that keeps it all together. But
I thought it was the filter.
So touche. But it really was a magical time, man. And I think that all these people that were contributing to the evolution of what was actually happening was, we were all too busy doing our thing to really realize that looking back, what we were doing was carving out an entirely new segment of an industry globally. Right. And it was really a unique time. I mean, even like, the brand owners and the principals, like, you ever seen the memes where it's like the owners that look like their dogs or whatever, like You know what I'm talking about? Like,
Yeah.
even at that time, you know, every brand that was out there, I felt was a really authentic reflection of that individual's basically riff, or this was their rendition of this thing that they loved, right? It was almost like they were all these capsule tribute projects, right? Like, this is my ode to my affinity for the dead plant rod. And, you know, for me, I mean, I really love smoking cigars, specifically Padron Anniversary. If you have an extra box, you can feel free to FedEx that shit to me tomorrow. Principe
Natural.
64 Natural.
Yeah.
Fucking
Yeah,
right.
Matt, you
That's
got
right.
me on that cigar, so I smoke way
That's
too
right.
many of those now. Yeah.
God, that's my shit. I love that.
Do you remember?
that.
I know you do. What everything you're describing, and Nate, I don't know if you remember this magazine. It was, I think it was Cigar Press at the time. I think it was.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I was literally Googling that to
Cover?
try to send that to you
That
right now.
cover, yeah.
I remember the
Yeah.
cover.
I wish I had it to put up on the screen, but it was Cigar Press, and it was you, Jonathan Drew, Dion from Illusion. You had Pete Johnson from Tatuaje, and there's someone. Oh, George Rico, I think was the
George
other one.
Rico
from
was on there, man.
Gran
Yep.
Habano, and
John Huber.
Yeah.
John Huber's on that. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that was it, right? There was like 6 of you.
Yeah, that's
think.
correct.
But it was just like what you were describing for those that weren't around the game at that time. That was a perfect cover shot of what you're describing, I feel like, because
Yes.
you had in the like kind of mid to late 90s that cigar boom where you talk to people that I wasn't smoking cigars at that time, but I mean everyone was saying how just everyone was just trying to put something out. And it was just like there was so many shitty cigars coming out, and that like they were cheap, and it was just anything that you could put out there. Even some celebrities were getting into it at the time. And then that kind of went dormant, I felt like. And then what you're talking about, mid-late 2000s, really late 2000s, you guys all kind of came on the scene. And you said that the golden era, I think you said, of the boutique
100%.
brand. And you're all still, from that cover, you're all still around in some regard.
Anybody that's on that cover is not only still around, they're still kicking up dust, still relevant, and still contributing to the industry and to the culture.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
know, I definitely think that there were a couple trailblazers pre that era. They burned very, very brightly, and you know, their fires, I'm not going to say they were extinguished, but they definitely didn't maintain the same level of momentum and velocity and relevance, you know, decade over decade, right? You know, this is our 15th year as a brand, you know, and I remember, and really 16 years in the game, you know, from the time I started working in the factories in Don Lee. And, you know, I remember taking the picture for that cover, and I'm like, you know, I'm all geeked out because I'm sitting there, we're all hanging out for an afternoon session, taking photos in George Rico's place on Cayocho in Miami. And I'm thinking like, man, like I'm geeked out to be here with all these guys that I look up to. Like, what the fuck am I doing here? Right.
Yeah, like who's going to want to see me in this magazine?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do something, pull my pants off or something, you know,
Right.
make it spicy. But the reality is like, you know, those guys, had they not blazed a trail for me, I wouldn't have also been able to do what I did, and so on and so forth. That ball rolls, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, well, not think, I know. I mean, it was a really magical moment, both that afternoon, spending the time with those guys, and also just that period of time was never to be repeated again. You talk to anybody that was active at the time, they'll tell you the same thing, man, guaranteed.
Yeah, you can't duplicate that. You know, they say obviously history repeats itself, but I think in that, I mean, it's going to be a while. There'd have to be a huge downturn, I think, in the industry to have that kind of a boost again from a group of guys that were doing those things. Yeah, you got that. Yeah, you look the same. He's showing me the photo here.
I look the same. Absolutely not. This business has gifted me, you know, gray hair, and you know, I'm teetering on the verge of fucking aneurysm. So you know, but I thank you for that. I appreciate it.
You grew a goatee, and you grew the hair on top out.
Yeah,
that's true.
You dyed it lighter, it looks like now.
Yeah, I dyed it lighter. There we go. Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
So the path of this, and Jonathan, you can chime in here because there's been a more recent turn. You, as you said, you came in working with Camacho, which was then Davidoff was working with, or basically took over Camacho before that.
Correct.
And then you kind of walk us through just a little bit, because I mean, again, we appreciate having you on the show, but I think it's interesting when people hear you talk about that boutique golden era, and I still hear it today. Like, I would like to start a cigar brand, or I want to, everyone says, wouldn't it be cool to have your own cigar brand? I bet you can make some good money and it's fun and all this stuff. The path that you took getting in what we're talking about in that cover shot, and then when you parted ways with Davidoff, and kind of, if you don't mind, kind of walk us through where I started seeing more with like you and Robert Caldwell, and then it was more recently there's been another chapter, I think, in the 15 years you're talking about.
Yeah, well, I mean, no one has the trajectory or the story that I do, right? Everyone's story is a personal journey and very individual, right, in nature. But I definitely, I know for a fact that no one, even the way that we were kind of ushered in and gained entree to the business to begin with, it's all very kind of unique to us. And quite frankly, we worked with larger houses to facilitate distribution of our product, to be able to reach folks more easily, to project our brand's message and philosophy through combustion across this great nation, right? And so we changed houses several times in terms of fulfillment and distribution. But each one of those chapters was a phenomenal learning experience for me, and
It's gotta be.
And allowed me to learn this industry and this craft from the largest of the large houses to being solely a completely independent operator with, basically warehouse fulfillment. And then, quite frankly, at that point, piloting things completely independently allowed me, that married with my time in grade and experience in the space, I'd kind of dialed my program in, and we started firing on all cylinders, and made ourselves very attractive for potential suitors, and ended up being acquired. Our cigar business being acquired by the largest company in the space, Scandinavian Tobacco Group, in 2022.
Right. And you're part of, and Jonathan, I think he's having technical difficulties. I'm trying to get him back on here, but you're
Jonathan
part of
is a technical difficulty.
He can be. Yeah, you've seen him when he's on here too.
I mean, I get it. It's fine. We love him.
We do. But you're part of the Forged portfolio.
Yeah. They so Room 101 was placed into that wheelhouse following the acquisition, and I remained in tow as the caretaker of the brand that I founded and created to begin with, right? So,
but you've also had your hands on some other ones with Forged and STG.
That's true.
The first thing that I had heard before, trying to see, I can say this. I wasn't there, but all of a sudden, Matt Booth was in Vegas, I think it was, or at a meeting, and then it was the Sancho Panza rebranding was the first thing. We've got the what is this one? The extra Cheeto. So you say that, but you had this branding on that. But before that, I saw a very familiar thing. Now you see it on the Los Santos Deluxe. That was showing up back in the day when you were working. I'm trying to think. It was Edgar Hoyle had that kind of cover on a cigar. You had that kind of like that. And I'm starting to see this familiarity here with some of the branding that you had started doing. You had that limited Sancho that had the big tissue paper and then the big cover. You took it off of the big label. It was like, I felt like that was a big splash. But for
I like to play dress up.
Yeah. For those that didn't know, like we had it on the retail side. They were just like, so what's going on here with the, like, what is that cigar? What is this? Like, I can't see it and all that stuff. And that it's not the first time you've seen that, but that was, I think, the big Matt Booth splash into the STG family.
Well, I've always been a fan of that dressing, and it was something that I saw floating around Honduras on the larger, diadema type formats. But it was, usually kind of like a sparkly, like construction paper, almost like something that you would imagine would be on like the banana seat of an old school bicycle, right?
Yeah.
And or like flake that would be on a car, right? And so I was like, okay, one of the main components of our brand's genetics across all categories is tampering with tradition, right? But also respecting the tradition, not to, to kind of like remind people some, root level aspects of whatever it is they might be interested in, and so I was like, how can we create this techno retro new school old school marriage between the way that we represent some of these more limited edition products, because I do believe, you can't have dressing in place of substance,
Correct.
but I think that you should also, at least I make a practice of trying to dress my products with the same level of attention and care that I afford to the composition of the blend mixture, and making sure that the construction is correct, all of these core components to the product, right? Because the product undressed is naked and vulgar. It must be dressed. So I
It's very
dress,
polite of you.
right?
Yeah.
And I try, and I think that since then, it might be a fair statement to say that some of the things that we implemented, in terms of the way that we dressed our products and the way that we brought our products to market, have effectively become industry standard in some ways, or an industry standard. There are far more people dressing their cigars that way today than
Yeah.
there wasn't anyone doing that then,
Well, not only just the way you did it, but you see some of the companies out there that they're using larger primary bands, using the foot bands to really make a statement. And then you see some also that have basically not necessarily the way that you did it, but you only get to see a little part of the wrapper leaf, because they've got so much in a different format, but they have so much dressing on the cigar. And to a point, the thing I like about the way that you've done it is really just because I never question when I've seen any Room 101, any of the Sancho Panza, any of the LSD stuff. When I start questioning as a consumer, if I'm buying one cigar at a price and I know that it's coming in a super expensive humidor box, or it's got this individual like super high-end coffin, and I know from a retail standpoint I'm paying basically 1/10 or 1/20th of the box price. As a consumer, sometimes that bothers the shit out of me, because I'm like, why am I paying for everything if I'm only buying one cigar and I don't get the box? I don't get, all this stuff. Like, what would this cigar cost if it didn't have all this stuff and just was the cigar? But I know it's all part of the marketing game. But I think one of the things I appreciate about what I've seen from you, and this is just my viewpoint, Nate, chime in anytime, but tissue paper doesn't cost anything. It costs something, but it's not a high expense. I don't think that when I see the white tissue paper, I'm like, well, I'm paying for the tissue paper, I guess, for this cigar to smoke. And the paper that you use on it now, the new what is it, the Connecticut LSD, that purple paper,
shit's nice, bro.
it's
right?
super nice.
I
looked at it, I'm like, the ink
make some
that goes
Hallmark
into
cards out
thing,
of that when you're done.
I mean, tell you what, that's some good parchment paper. But no, I guess my point is, you've done a way of doing it from what it seems, it hasn't affected the price of the cigars to a high level.
Well, it's funny, man, because like no matter how many of these types of things I engage in, there's always something new that comes from them. And I think that through your lens, that's a super cool perspective, and I appreciate you noticing, because one, although I have made some excessively fanciful bullshit in my day, right? Like, no doubt, because there are some things that are elevated, but the cornerstone of Room 101 is that it was meant to be luxury that was attainable, that it was meant to be for all, inclusive, right? And not have this giant barrier to entry called price. And so, I've learned to do a lot with a little. And, part of our, paper dressing was to obviously afford that level of care and attention to the way that those cigars, and that's uh, a presentation that we afford to some of the more limited or more special, blend variants and products, sub-brand products that we offer. But at the same time, it's not, an over-the-top, lacquer box.
Right.
It's a way to elevate representation, but do it more. I'm not going to say from in a guerrilla fashion, although that we do go to market that way quite frequently. It's just the spirit of it is, to try to meet in the middle on all that.
Sure.
No,
I think
so
it
thanks for
shows.
noticing.
No, it's hard not to. I think sometimes. Especially, again, I've only been in the industry side of things for about 12 years, and to see the growth and the ups and downs, and even a previous company you were working with, like the Camacho brand, and how they went through their rebranding and everything like that, they were able to keep it down. But, there's certain cigars, I see the packaging, it is a lot of times limited runs, but I do notice when you see things on the shelf, if I see a high gloss individual coffin and inside of a unique box and all this stuff, and I finally get to the cigar, and I'm like, I spent whatever $20 on this cigar. Like this could be, if it came in a bundle, much less. But then the other side of me is like, well, would I have bought it or would anyone buy this if it was just in a bundle, for a $10, $12 bundle cigar? No, they're going to buy it for $18, $20 with all the dressing on it and all the marketing behind it, because there's still, I think, a little bit of a romantic interest of wanting to be feeling that luxury side of things.
Of
Jonathan,
course.
what have you seen since Room 101 has had a new entry into the Forge portfolio?
I'll tell you, the biggest thing I learned from Matt over the year or so that I was representing Forge with Room 101 was
There have been learnings.
There have been huge learnings.
I'm very excited.
It was the partnerships he created, and I got to see some, especially one major account that's one of our biggest accounts in the country with Room 101, and to see, with Matt pouring into this account and Matt pouring his time into the shop, see what that can create. And when you actually sit down and you build a business plan with a partner, and they treat it like a partnership instead of just a one-way street, the things you can do. And that was a huge learning for me. And I it, as a rep, I always thought of it as more of a one-way street. I'm providing you something, you're going to sell it in the shop. But the way Matt approached things was very differently. Is we're going to work together on this, and we're going to make it bigger than you ever could have imagined it was going to be. And I got to go down, in San Antonio, and this beautiful shops that we have down there, Club Humidor, see events where Matt would come in and people are lined up. Matt did an anniversary cigar for them, and it was my first event ever with Matt. And it was in Connecticut. It was a $25 20th anniversary, I believe, cigar for this shop. 25th anniversary for this shop. It was a high-end cigar. It was in Connecticut, and guys are waiting in line out the door to buy boxes of the cigar. And I'm talking to the guys. I'm just picking up like, what why are you waiting in line to buy this box? And so excited about this. And they were like, it's Matt. It's whatever he does. He supports the shop. The shop supports him. When he shows up, we're going to support him. I don't even smoke Connecticut's, but I'm buying a box of these to support. So, my biggest learning is Matt sat down, created these partnerships. And these partnerships are go both ways. When they need something, when Matt needs something, and it's a beautiful thing. And it goes to what the cigar business is all about, like this family of like lifting each other up instead of just asking for things. And that is a pretty incredible learning. And so since he's been with STG, I think it's been great for our company to learn from him. I think he brings so much new to the table. And, it's one of those things everybody was always really excited to sit down and talk to Matt, or when Matt does a presentation at a sales meeting, like we go to all these different rooms at the national sales meeting. Everybody's excited to get to Matt's room because, it's going to be a fun presentation that you're going to learn a lot and laugh a lot and have a good time. And So yeah, Matt's been a breath of fresh air. It's been incredible to have him on board, and I'm so thankful for the time I got to spend on the road with him and just like kind of learning from him.
Well,
Are you
thanks,
crying,
bro. I did. I had to.
I
I
saw you
literally
wipe.
had to.
It looked
I
like
did.
you
I had
yeah,
to. Oh my
something in your eye.
goodness, man. Fucking A, Herring. Thanks,
You-
man.
We can
Well,
we can step out if you guys want to like do a little bit. Of the show.
if you could, and just at least like let
Maybe
us
we
get
can
a
dim
little,
the studio lights a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
Virtual hug.
yeah. But I mean, look, man. I appreciate you saying that, and I've always felt like, hey, man, that stuff, it's not rocket science, right? Nor are we rocket scientists. Except I think one brand owner actually is a rocket scientist.
Yes, he is.
That's my man Omar. Yeah. What's up?
He worked. He was an accountant for NASA, I think, is the technical relationship. So, but yeah,
that's because he was too tall to fit in a spacesuit.
Right.
There we go. He had to have custom tailor-made spacesuits, and it was a whole fucking thing.
It's just too expensive. Too expensive.
I get it. So, but look, man, if someone authentically supported me, it's just part of my genetic composition. Like, there is nothing that I wouldn't do for them in return. And you, quite honestly, you would be surprised how many, and the strongest accounts that we built were all built on that, with that formula, right? And but you would be surprised. I would look to add to our top tier stable with people that, I mean, look, I know they're guys and girls behind the counter, the managers, their customers. Like, I'm invested with them, right? And it's not for everyone. Some people don't understand that, right? And so that just made me dig deeper with the people that were dug in with me, and it was like us against the world, Ben. I felt good because we turned all of those things, each one of those instances, into a success story that I think to some degree was less than anticipated. Not that we weren't going to sell products and that, but the depth and dimension to those relationships, I think, went further than they probably imagined possible.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Do you consider yourself to this day a Room 101 as a boutique brand still, or do you think it's grown beyond that?
I would like to say that Room 101 has been, is, and forever will be the industry's first salon brand.
Salon brand.
No one else to this day has been salon.
Sure.
We're salon.
So do I not
Thank you.
have, like, do you need to have hair?
Good talk. Thank you. No, you can. No, come one, come all. Like, okay. This is fully inclusive.
Or something
Yeah. No, man. Boutique.
How do you define salon brand?
How do you define boutique brand, fucker?
These are great questions.
See? Well, look, I think
if you say craft enough.
If you say craft 3 times, then
you're a boutique.
Then you're right. Okay. So
enough times a new IPA is born.
Damn it, you beat me to it. Yeah, damn it.
I think that obviously at its core, the idea of calling something boutique is that there's a far more intimate level of connection between the principal and the product, intimacy in terms of the quantities that are produced, and allegedly that this is to produce a far higher quality and lower volume product, and I think that, but I think over the years, boutique quickly became a term that was to describe aesthetics, that was to describe a brand that was non-traditional in nature by the way that it looked, right? I mean, that's my opinion. I mean, what the fuck?
I always thought boutique, and going back to not to beat a dead horse, but like that cover shot there, boutique for me, I think of like a boutique shop where it's kind of a local, very personable shopping experience. In a lot of like big cities, in different countries and stuff like that, I think of a boutique store, and that's where I always kind of went. My take on it was that it's a boutique brand because it's Matt Booth and Room 101. It's a kind of a smaller, very personable experience by shopping at that store or with that brand. And I the guys that we mentioned on that, I would say, and you guys disagree if you'd like, but I think Jonathan Drew with Drew Estate kind of got big. And then obviously in 2014 was acquired by a bigger company. And then you've got like Room 101. I feel like Matt Booth, you working with STG, I'm interested to see where that goes, because obviously working with Davidoff, that's not a small company. Working with STG being even larger. But then the reason I asked that, I think, is really because like Room 101, it's still, no matter if you're with Davidoff, you're with STG, or when you're doing all your own stuff there in between, it's still buying your Room 101 is Matt Booth. It's, you know, I think of like Tatuaje, that's still, even though it's my father and it's all, there's a bigger operation now, it's still Pete Johnson. And I think
100%.
He's not as, from what I see, he's not as active in the industry as much as he was, which is understandable. But I think Room 101, through the transitions of where you're getting distributed from and everything, it's always been Matt Booth is Room 101, and you've been more active than some of these guys as they've grown. And I don't know if you guys agree with that.
I think those guys are all active. I think that, you know, activity, you know, you're probably marrying the idea of activity with visibility, right?
Correct.
And,
yes,
you know,
that is a better word for it. Yeah.
And part of my process is I have always felt part of my responsibility in curating this branded effort is to remain as connected as possible to the end user consumer. Because I think that, look, man, if they're going to spend their money on one of my very fine and properly adorned and dressed, as we, you know, previously mentioned, right, and highlighted, fine premium plant rods, they should know from whom they are buying them and who they are supporting, right? You know, what is this brand's philosophy? What is the principle of the brand stand for? Why are they doing this? You know, what are we investing in? You know, and honestly, man, when we brokered the acquisition deal, you know, and we closed, you know, I spent the next 2 to 3 weeks on the phone, individually and personally, with retailers and shop managers and customers, and every single live and club, HERF. Even though I hate that word, I'll say it.
I do too.
I'll say HERF.
Say it.
I hate that word. Gross.
Yeah.
I was on all of them because I wanted them to hear it from me. You know, I wanted them to hear it from me. And honestly, man, the sale of Room 101 cigars was honestly probably one of the best things that could have happened to the brand, because there's so many levels that this brand will ascend that, quite frankly, not that they're not possible on an independent and grassroots basis, but it completely changed the landscape for the future of this brand, you know?
Yeah, makes sense.
In a healthy fashion. Well, healthy, managed, right? Because the core focus and goal of and the purpose of my continued involvement as a caretaker here and director is that, you know, the brand will be empowered by this machine, not overpowered by it. You know, and that was, is, and will continue to be my focus. You know.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where in this industry, you know, joking about like craft brews and everything else, it's when, if Room 101 was acquired by STG and Matt Booth was not visible, as you said, these blends changed. They're not what they used to be. You know, I liked it when Matt was involved. Like, all of those statements come out. When you put a new band or new marketing, like a new branding on the same blend, or that, you know, you're flat out like, no, this is the same thing, and you switch up the band or the box.
What are you talking about? People do that.
I'm saying the perception can be that no, it's not the same, and then the rep or someone, or all the press, all the blogs, everything, no, it's the same thing. But then all of a sudden you see, I think a lot of times that it's well, it's not as good as it used to be. It must be different. They must be, you know, the big boys have cut costs. They've done all this stuff. So the visibility, as you called it, I think it's a better way of doing it, or a better way of phrasing it, just because, yeah, I mean, coming straight from you, talking about this is still Room 101. This is not necessarily STG doing Room 101. This is Room 101 working through STG.
Doing STG.
and I'll say, like, as a rep that was there during the transition, like, that was kind of fun because I kind of expected what you were.
Oh.
See, he's gonna. Oh, there you go. You're back. No, wait for it.
Try again.
Go. No,
Hey, you're muted.
no audio.
Can't.
We can see you.
And you look good. You look great. You do.
Great angle.
You really do. Yeah. Oh my God. Look at it. Look at the profile. Turn your head. Look at that. Look at that jaw. Even through the beard, you can see that jawline
Sure.
chiseled, bro.
Be on a dollar bill.
He should be something.
No,
can't hear you.
no. I'm trying to see if I can unmute you.
Damn, I feel like he was going to say something highly complimentary to me too.
Yeah, we still don't have any audio.
He's gonna come back and be like, "What was I saying?"
He's gonna forget. Do you want to
Well,
log off,
and
log back on?
I think that, when we were talking about the dress of the product being reflective of the care that was given to the product, right? I feel that staying out in front of the brand and continuing to evangelize, right, is part of the, like optically, I would hope that communicates a level of care and attention that the brand is still receiving from me, right? And
No, it's out. Yeah.
I remember having those calls because, I would be on a group with like the barrel burners or whoever, whichever group that I was on, and I said, okay, there's going to be three mindsets here, right? And one of them is going to be like room 101 all day. Booth has got this, trust, 100%, right?
Yeah.
Good. Check. So you can listen, but we're just kicking it. We're just hanging out. The second mindset is, I've seen, I've seen larger companies acquire smaller branded businesses before, and I'm curious as to what is going to happen. But I believe that if anybody could do it, this dude could. And then the third is like, okay, this is what have I invested myself in? We have probably the most. I don't have all the statistics, but just from what the internet tells me, I have to think that, we're one of the most, if not the most tattooed brand in the business by consumers, and I think about guys that have put our logos on their hands, their neck, all that shit. And it's my responsibility to them, to show up and say, hey man, look, this is the best thing that could have happened to our brand. But if you're skeptical or you're concerned, just give me a year. Give me a year, watch what I do. And if I fail my own brand because I'm swept up in the current of the, and overrun by the power of this company and things aren't, what they were supposed to be, then you can turn the lights out on our brand, and you should, that's not the point of doing all this. Right. So, I wanted them to hear it from me personally. And, look, man, everybody's going to do what they're going to do. But at the end of the day, like, I hope that resonated to some degree, and it was just authentically how I would handle that scenario anyway. So, so there we go. Jonathan, do you have the capability to communicate? Oh my God, look at you.
Sorry, I got a phone call and it messed up everything. What I was saying was that it was nice because you didn't change up your factories, you didn't change up who was making what. So it was something that when I sat down with people, and I had a lot of customers who didn't buy from STG that just bought, boutique cigars, they bought from you, and I got to sit down in front of them and said, he's keeping it like it is. Ventura is still making this, Hoya is going to be making this. Like what you were doing, we kept going, and that was. From what I heard, that was part of your deal with STG is, that we're gonna keep things as they should be, and what got us to this place, and we're not gonna necessarily just turn things on their head because of that. And honestly, STG has had issues in the past 10, 15, 20 years ago when we've acquired brands, and I think this was handled the right way, and we're letting the guy that got us to the dance floor, still guide the ship. So I think it's fantastic.
I think the continuation of that.
It was interesting because, I had redesigned Los Dados and Sancho Panza before we started having these flirtations about Room 101, right? And it was a byproduct of that process, that creative process, where we kind of both realized, like, I personally realized, like, hey, this much larger company was actually very fair with me, with the way that they dealt with me in this process, and that was comfortable to me, and there was a little notch of trust gained there, and I think they realized that Captain Good Times over here was a participant and a partner, and some of the earlier, and then that level of comfort and trust led to conversations about looking under the hood with our brand, right? And some of the initial conversations really didn't center so much about around anything other than you know um, were we going to share a vision in terms of the way that we piloted this thing, and were we going to do it in a partnered fashion and go to war together authentically, you know in line with our pre-existing brand philosophies, right? And the way that I was piloting this thing we could not deviate, because that would disintegrate the brand, right? And from their executives, I think timing played a good part. If they had not taken the learnings from some of their previous experiences with brand acquisition, I don't think that they would have been in a state where they could have brought me into the fold, and allowed me to continue to direct creatively, right, and to pilot, because one of the statement that they made that got me, they said, Booth, we've acquired brands, and for the sake of the show, I'll say it didn't. They basically illustrated the fact that it didn't work out the way that they had hoped, right?
They fucked up.
And
I can think of a couple.
they used other words, and it was very honest and very direct, right? And so, and they said, we've done that before, and we can't do that. We can't do that with you, because A, it would fucking destroy what you built, and B, it would be a waste of our money. So we
What's the
can't
point
do
unless
that.
you're trying to eliminate the competition?
And so we were both saying the same thing. I mean, I was fighting for. I said, hey man, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to entertain the idea, but like, this can't go along without me, at least not for X amount of years. We have the international market to seed correctly. We have to seed past the point of any skepticism that's generated in the existing market space, because of the acquisition, right, and all the dynamics that we just discussed previously. And we both wanted the same thing. And that's when I realized that, hey, we actually share this vision, and let's fucking go for it, man. Let's do this.
No, it seems like it's a good
And here we are a couple years later. No one has gone sideways on me.
Right.
I've learned a lot from them, and I think that they've taken some learnings from us too. So I think it's a really healthy partnership. So there we go.
I think there has to be a goal when you do something like this, and it sounds like and we've all seen STG and other companies do that, where they acquire someone, and at first you think, okay, well, maybe they see the investment is worth it, right? The return on the investment's there, and then they completely change everything, or the principal of that company has like a 2-year deal, and then they're gone, and now it's just another, almost like a catalog cigar, and people that followed you, they don't smoke it anymore, but now that bigger company might be selling it as a different type of brand, but with the same branding and all that stuff. So new smokers might be falling into it, but they don't know the history of Matt Booth. They don't know the history of these other companies, but we have seen all of that. It just seems that where this industry is, it's ahead of like what we talk about in this show. The other aspect is the bourbon, or the spirit side of it. The cigar boom is ahead of the bourbon boom. We've seen it a little bit more growth and more history behind it. So I like to hear that you're saying that, because it was sad to see some of these other boutique brands that had success, got a nice acquisition, and then within 2 years, it's just like, well, it's junk. And then you hear that there's arguments going on, there's creative differences and all this stuff. And most of the time you blame the big guy. You blame the big guy for basically misleading the principal of that company. And you're just like, well, what was the point? Were you trying to eliminate it? You should have just bought it and said, it's gone. You know what I mean? If you're eliminating competition, that's one thing.
Yeah, or why wouldn't you just make some new shit? Like,
Right.
why go through the trouble, you know, of going through the deal doing process and all that, you know, because it's a lot of effort, man.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hands on deck that I mean, other than the people that are directly involved that no one ever sees. I mean, there are a lot of like long days and sleepless nights and a lot of documents and a lot of document sculpting and back and forth and this and that. And it's like to invest that type of energy and those types of resources just to, not see it all the way through to success is kind of bewildering to me. But I mean, we've seen it happen, but this is not that, so there we go.
Yeah, and that's what's nice to see because you're absolutely right. It's one of those things. If you're going to just buy out a company to limit your competition, don't go through the whole song and dance, But I understand that sometimes the big boys, they don't want to look like a bad guy, right? They don't want to look like a bad guy. So they do the song and dance and say, oh, it didn't work out. And then a year or two later, like they don't have to worry about X brand. So there's two sides of that side of it, but it's good to see. The Room 101 Hit and Run, what are we smoking here tonight? Because we had Robustos and we're coming to the end of ours here. So before we light up the Sancho here, what the Hit and Run, what's the makeup of it? What's the idea behind the Hit and Run concept here?
So a little history and then current day, right? So the original Hit and Run I released as a collaborative project with my dear friend Robert Caldwell in 2016. And this was kind of like my first independent release following our distribution, severing our distribution arrangement with our larger previous partner, right? And the brand seeded, like it was well received. And not to mention, it was a whole lot of fucking fun for us to create it, right? And create it in the William Ventura house, which, I love everybody we work with, man, but I definitely get down with those guys the deepest on the creative side, because it's a far more intimate atmosphere there. And, some of our best sessions have been where we push each other. And honestly, we create things that neither one of us would have created separate from that collaborative atmosphere, fast forward to this year. I wanted to keep the Hit and Run brand active and kind of celebrate Rosewood and Maya's friendship, as well as the fact that, that was kind of the new beginning of Room 101 for me as well, at that time. So this is the third realization or the third installment of this brand, but the first under STG's arm and wing, caring, tender caress, and still made with the artisans in a collaborative sense with the artisans at William Ventura and with Rosewood, the long one himself. You have a beautiful, beautiful Maduro wrapper that encapsulates some tobaccos from Connecticut and Pennsylvania, sparingly and systematically composed to afford you their power and potency. And quite frankly, a little bit of the nicotine buzz that I favor when I smoke. It's a little creeper. It's not in your face, but they are some higher nicotine content cigars. And the binder, which I think is a little trick that I learned working with the Venturas, because they use this Sumatra binder called Basuki. Okay. And other types of all these different tobaccos fucking behave differently, right? And not only do they behave differently individually, then prismatically they start to behave differently depending on who else they're married with, right? As they become friends over time, you would hope. Sometimes they don't. Very much like human relationship or any other relationship. Some things literally just don't work well together, and this is no different for the blending of tobacco. And so the Basuki is really interesting because after you've kind of created the chassis of this product and decided that, okay, this wrapper is going to dress this product properly, and this is going to bring balance to the force here, but I don't want to really disrupt what I've got going on. This is a phenomenal construction agent that doesn't really play so much of a role in terms of the modification of the way the thing performs under combustion. It doesn't really play a lot of palate participation, so to speak, right? So it really acts as a construction agent, holds it all together. Like those disgusting boxer briefs that everybody is so assigned to wearing these days.
You're more of a boxer guy or commando guy, or
I'm boxer.
okay.
Boxer, yeah. I like it because it reduces the friction, but it also keeps things free to move. I like the movement.
Sure. That's good.
Oh, that's weird. Not
not at
anything
all.
else we said. That's fucking weird. Okay,
I don't think it's weird at all.
We're just trying to figure out where our bumpers are here in this conversation. We're getting to know each other, you know.
I think you're good. I think you're good.
Okay. Well, great. I feel great. I feel good.
And no, we don't need to see said boxers. It's good. The description was great. The Pennsylvania tobacco in there, is that broadleaf, I assume?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a tricky
Pennsylvania
one.
and Connecticut broadleaf.
Yeah, that's it. Pennsylvania broadleaf is such a unique flavor profile. And I mean, you said it was delicately used in there, like a one leaf probably.
Well, you have to use it sparingly because either one of those components, if you overuse them, you can start to get a lot of pungent tones, right?
Yeah.
That start to become overbearing. You know, it can, you know, provide like an either dirty or like metallic almost kind of taste. I mean, everybody describes that differently. Too much is too much, but just enough is just right. I
like Pennsylvania broadleaf. It's used in the filler. There was a time there, and I don't think there's many out there right now, but where people were kind of flirting with the Pennsylvania broadleaf as a wrapper leaf. And that's a tough one. That's a tough one to get. That's a unique smoker, I think. It sells, but it's not a mass seller that I've seen.
I mean, it's pretty sturdy, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Right.
You know, I don't do it often, but I've done like a blend dissection seminar for some of our accounts and whatnot over the years. And typically I use Farce Maduro because it's has few components, but similar to Hit and Run, which also has few components. Each of their components are very stout. Like I said, both individually, aside from anything, and also collectively in the mixture, you know. And so, you know, we'll provide small puritos of each component, wrapper, binder, filler, like not as a fuma, but made as like a short robusto, like a proper cigar.
Okay.
And let people smoke those. And, you know, they really, that way they can really become familiarized with the individual personality and the character traits of those tobaccos. And then I think when they finally smoke the, you know, the production product that has the marriage of those, they can actually, I think, begin to better pick them out.
Yeah. I don't recall myself. I've never smoked a pure Pennsylvania broadleaf small cigar.
Well, we'll have to send you one.
Yeah. That
knock yourself out.
I would love to see the crowd reaction when they light that one up. It's not that it's bad, but you described it. You know, I agree that is, it's an overpowering flavor profile a lot of times, but
it is. But you know what, man? Like when you smoke it in that form, you know, it's not gonna blow your face off, but it is stout. You know, gives you good buzz.
I'm sure it does. Nate, what are your thoughts on the Hit and Run? Have you smoked this before?
I have. I smoked it one other time.
Okay.
It was a sample left at the shop that I was able to smoke.
Right.
I was like, oh wait, that's Maduro? Because I think a lot of cigar smokers, like when they hear Maduro, they're thinking something a lot darker than this.
Yeah,
like almost Oscuro is kind of what they're thinking of. Because they're thinking something that's going to be super dark, almost to the point of being black. And it's not. So hearing that's kind of surprising.
Well, you know, but I mean, Maduro, same with Boutique. Like this has become more of a descriptive term, right? To identify something that's excessively dark, you know?
Sure, absolutely.
The one thing that really kind of stands out about this, well, first two things. Before I lit it up, putting the foot up to my nostrils, that smell of tobacco, like that's what I expect a cigar to smell like. Like that smells like a cigar. Just this really rich tobacco note on it, kind of leathery on the nose. Like I was like, because that's one of those things where before lighting it up, I'm like, oh, now I really want to focus in and see what this cigar is about. Because I didn't do that the first time I smoked it. I literally just cut it and lit it up. And then the other thing that stands out, and there's not many cigars I've had that are like this, but there's this clean aspect to the cigar, to the smoke. And what I mean by that is it doesn't, like when you draw in and you let it go, it doesn't necessarily linger on the palate.
Clean finish.
It's sharp, but not in a brash way. The finish is, I think, very short and kind of fleeting, but not. Some people think that's a bad thing. No, like I said, there's one other cigar that I've smoked recently that reminds me of that. It's just gone. Like it's very clean. It doesn't linger on your palate. It's just you get the flavor when you hold it in. You blow the smoke out, and then it's gone. You're like, oh, I need to keep puffing on this.
Or you
I
gotta
like
have a
flavor.
clean finish.
I kind of want to keep going on this, but it's
You
super,
must have
super
clean
clean.
finish. You must.
And
You must.
and then it's got just a little bit more amped up through the notes. The retrohale, it's not overwhelmingly spice, but the flavors that you get on the palate and then you blow it through the nostrils, it just amplifies all that flavor. Because I think the cigar as a whole is very, very clean and crisp. And so going through the nose, it just exemplifies all those other characteristics that are in the cigar.
Jonathan Herring, you hear what he just said?
I did.
This man is fucking paying attention.
So
Look,
it's also because of what I
what?
do is my primary career. I sell wine and liquor for a living as well as cigars. So paying attention to notes and finish and body, acidity, all those things. I'm actually studying to take my YSET exam.
Nice.
So like all those things are things that in the last year and a half of my current career are things I've started to pay attention to. And it's really rewarding to see that transition from that industry as a career to this that's kind of more of a hobby.
It's been a career at times. This
has been a career.
I've done this longer, right?
Yeah, I've done this
Enjoyed
12 and a
longer.
half years. I used to be a sales rep for a company,
Retail side.
mostly I've been in retail, but yeah. But no, it's kind of taking some of the best aspects of that and putting into this. It's kind of made me enjoy this hobby even more and kind of almost reinvigorate the passion for it.
That's great.
Well,
Sean,
you check the boxes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. We're going to turn. We have a studio audience here, and Sean's smoking it as well. So you haven't seen him, but go ahead, Matt.
Well, no, man. I mean, look, all of our products are meant to be complementary to one another as an overarching collection of experiences, but that's exactly what they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be individual experiences, very different from one another. There's no point to have 5 of the same cigar with different fucking bands on them. And as we discussed previously, no one does that in this business.
No.
So, but you check the boxes on a couple things for me that are universal in what I look for when putting together a blend composition. I want the elements to be balanced. There's a time and a place for all these different personality traits to shine, right? And each one has, just like a different cast of characters, each one has, its formula calibrated to offer this different type of personality or experience. But for me, it's got to be rock star in the nose, and it's got to have a clean finish. And those are 2 universal character traits that I try to weave into, to the best of my ability, every product that we make. Because I think it's polite.
It's enjoyable. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I want to comment on the cigar too. I agree with Nate totally. It's I definitely was like,
Hang on. Go ahead.
You hear me now?
Go.
Oh, you're good now? Hello.
Try.
I can kind of hear you. You're quiet.
All right, one.
Hello.
No, it's
It should be that one. We haven't used that mic in a while.
Hello.
turn both of them on.
Hear me now?
Is the mic on? Can you hit the switch?
That would help.
There we go.
Oh,
That would help if it worked that way,
It
right?
was the lug nut. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry.
The
No,
bug
no.
nut.
No.
All right. So, yeah. So, I agree with Nate. I was smelling the cigar as well, and it was very just a crisp, clean smell. And where we are, Matt, it's kind of warm in the day, but the fall has definitely come here in Columbus, Ohio. So it's cool out, and it's be a nice cigar to have by a fire. And
Absolutely.
and it would just kind of complement both things right there. And I also, the retrohale, it's not too often, like a lot of them have kind of a similar taste to me in a retrohale, but this one is like such an earthy, clean taste that it's like, just, my God, it's like perfect for this kind of weather. And it just, when you want to go back to like the roots of a cigar and you know, and just get a really good feel and a taste of what a cigar really is, I think this is the one.
My man.
Yeah, all I'll say is I'm not going to repeat everything you said. It's kind of like, you know, everyone's like smoking their drinks now, you know, with the wood chips or like a smoker for food. There's a little bit of like the burning wood chips, like almost like a cedar wood chips. If you're doing that, that's really the flavor. When you say this type of the year or this time of the year, sitting around a fire, I take it almost a step further. It's like the burning, like it's kind of like when you're doing like a smoked old fashioned, you get that aroma off of that glass, where you have a little bit of like, you can tell, I think it's cedar wood chips. I'm not the best at that. It's not like mesquite or anything like that, but it's almost like that cedar woodiness coming off of the smoke that I really have enjoyed. And it is on the palate, and then through the nose, the retrohale, as you said, Nate, it amps it up, but it does give it a little bit of more spice to it. So yeah, you guys, I love that. And the construction has been fantastic. I mean, yeah,
I've been sitting here just laying down my ashes
Yeah.
because I first lit it up and, you know, got a good inch long ash on a Robusto, and that thing was just holding together.
Yeah.
And you got those little bumps in the tobacco, so it's a little bit of a toothy wrapper to it. But yeah, I mean, just easy draw, but the ash just holds together, and that's always something I really enjoy finding in a cigar, is that quality construction where it just holds together and it's not flaking all over the place.
Absolutely. Jonathan, what do you think of this?
It's honestly embarrassingly my first time smoking it. I had to go to a shop and get a couple. Yeah, and I have super enjoyed it, and it just harkens back to me to what like William Ventura's factory, along with Matt, you know, combined together can do. And a Maduro from them, it's all about complexity to me with Ventura. It's about refined, you know, complexity with a lot of great flavors to it, not overwhelming, you know, your taste buds. Like Matt could have had this cigar made, you know, at a different factory and with the same components. I think it would have been a ass kicker that didn't have the refined nature that this has. So I think it just turned out perfectly, and really enjoying it. And I'm gonna be hitting somebody up for a couple of boxes in the next couple of days here.
Well, I think also
you know who.
Yeah, I know who.
Yeah.
I think also sometimes, like if you tell someone, oh yeah, this cigar is Maduro, there's already a preconceived thought in their mind of what they think that cigar is going to taste like. They think it's going to be this big espresso, dark chocolate, this super rich, heavy flavor bomb of a cigar. But no, this one's got finesse to it. I mean, this is not something that's trying to blow you away. This is something that you actually have to sit there, and as you're smoking it, you have to pay attention to what is going on, because there's nothing that's trying to stand out. Everything's just working together in harmony.
I mean, this is the goal.
Yeah.
Hey, and Matt, just to let you know, Nate is known as the Russian judge, so you're getting really good feedback from Nate. This is not always normal.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll take it.
He doesn't just praise everything. I'll promise you that.
Okay.
I will second that. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's industry's fault a little bit, where basically for a while there, anyone introducing a line of cigars, whether you're established or not, for a good while there in the 2010s, it was basically you have a Connecticut, a Sun Grown, and a Maduro, and that was the way that they were being classified. every once in a while you'd see, instead of sun grown, you see like Corojo or something like that. But there was a lot of this. I'm going to release a mild, a medium, and a full body cigar, and it's Connecticut's the mild, sun grown's medium, Maduro's full. So I think that's a little bit of the industry's fault, I think, of misleading smokers, that they, when they hear Maduro or they see Maduro on, they're like, oh, I don't like full bodied cigars. So I think it's nice to see that as people have educated themselves now, and when you're doing projects like this, is that it doesn't mean, like, I don't have a Hit and Run Connecticut necessarily. I don't have a sun grown. I don't have a Maduro. This is an expression of this cigar. And yes, technically it's a Maduro shade wrapper, but it's not going to be painted. It's not going to be super baked. It's not, this is more of a natural Maduro, and that's that, smoke it. But it's a great point though, Nate, that you say that a lot of people would say, if you had on the band, instead of Hit and Run, it's Hit and Run Maduro. They're like, I don't smoke Maduros. I don't enjoy them. They're too heavy.
This is one of those where if you had a customer that came in and you're asking them, like, what do you like? What do you don't like? And you're trying to make a recommendation. If everything they say points to this cigar and then they throw in, I don't like Maduros, you could still throw this cigar at them.
Yeah.
And not 100%. Tell them, because this is not what tradition, so to speak, has led people to think of what a Maduro is.
Well, on that point, what's so funny is Johnny Tobacco Nut is the same way. So Johnny Tobacco Nut's a Connecticut that a full-bodied smoker enjoys. I was able to put that in anyone's hand, whether they smoke mild, medium, or full, and it was an expression by itself of an incredible cigar that has great flavor. And it's kind of funny that we're going from the Maduro here to the Johnny Tobacco Nut Connecticut, and it's the same situation with retail with customers.
No, absolutely. Matt, what's the future of Matt Booth's impact on STG?
Interpretive dance.
Nice. Event only, right?
Event only interpretive dance sessions. Yeah.
Good.
Synchronized swimming, synchronized cigar smoking, swimming. Oh yeah.
You're gonna have to get a pool at the events.
Yeah, I mean, no problem.
A lot of logistics.
I mean, many things have been done.
It is a really cool look when you take a drag from a cigar, hold it, and then dive into a pool and then let that smoke up.
Haven't done it.
Mm-hmm.
It is a pretty cool look, because that smoke just hits and then just
you come on out and you'll have your chance. We'll have the swimwear, European, of course, for everybody. It'll be fun.
Yes.
Maybe I'll make my way to Napa.
There you go. No, man. I mean, the future looks bright, man. I mean, we're continuing to build our brand across all categories. Next year, we're officially introducing Room 101 throughout Europe and intelligently placed through parts of the Asia Pacific market. And we continue to grow in the smokable category, as well as the other things that we do. I'm just going to keep building my brand my way.
Nice.
Until I can't do it anymore.
You brought up the European market there. Follow up on that. Do you see from your vantage point, do you see an opening that was larger than before? I'm sorry to lead you into this, almost like a leading question, but with Habanos SA changing their pricing structure and the distribution structure in the last year or so, do you see the European market, Asian market, being more open to brands like Room 101 now more than before, or is it about the same type of effort?
Well, I mean, okay, so yes, but they couldn't have applied gasoline to the fire at any more of an appropriate moment, right? Because there are groups, and specifically, the first guy that comes to mind is Scott Vines, the head of Tour Importers in the UK, who was my first international distributor outside the United States, right? And their entire agenda is to introduce what they refer to as New World or New World cigars, right? To
U.S. market,
these markets that are dominated by Cuban product, right?
Right.
And they've been beating that drum and championing that message for years, and slowly but surely, year over year, the interest in these products has continued to flourish and to grow, right? I think that we were, and as that was growing, you enter this dynamic that you just mentioned, and that just elevated the scale and scope of opportunity in those markets by, 10, 20, 100 fold. I don't really know what the cigar math is on that. All I know is that it's going to help take things to the next level and beyond for myself, and a great deal of the brand principles and the brands that are either active or trying to become more active in those markets.
Yeah, I think it's good to hear that stuff from people like you that you're in that position, and again from your point of view that that there is opportunity there, because when you talk about the math, I would say immediately it would almost be like the price increases on the Cuban cigars being exported throughout the world. That's simple math right there. I think when the prices have jumped and the availability has almost gone down, it seems like, in a lot of the countries that we're getting a lot more in the European market, Asian market, and everything else. It'll be interesting. The only thing that I would say I hope for to represent the U.S. Buyer is that it doesn't necessarily sacrifice the availability when you're scaling up elsewhere to the U.S. market, which I know it's got to be a very, very tricky aspect of the growth.
Of course, man. But I mean, there is no market grander than the market here on our home turf.
Absolutely.
These are intimate markets, and done with some thought and some care. It's a challenge that can be met. I'm excited, man. I mean, I remember before we were openly distributing in Switzerland, I was getting info back to me from guys that were over there that they were finding some of our farce in retail, like in Geneva and Basel and whatnot. And, they were on the shelf, and these guys were buying them from sources in the US and putting them on the shelf there for 25 and 30 Swiss francs, which is a pretty fucking expensive cigar. Now, all those guys are going to have access to our products consistently from a centralized point of distribution, and they'll be able to sell them at a fair price that's reflective of closer to what it should be on the shelf. So
that's wonderful.
I'm excited to meet that need, and finally satiate.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear from someone like yourself, because it is. I think that's something that a lot of people have these questions about that, and it's interesting to see what's going to happen as far as you introduce it into markets that were predominantly Cuban markets, right? Is that they look at the new world, as you called it, which is what they call it. Does it stand up? They're almost going to be forced to buy some of the U.S. dominated brands because of the availability and the price increases, I think, of the Cuban market. So they'll start smoking them almost possibly reluctantly. And I'm of the opinion that it's going to be a lot of transition in the opinion of worldwide smokers.
Of course, man. I mean, there's going to be a sensational awakening, right? And I think that, I mean, for those that weren't already hip to the game, because like I said, there have been many champions for this message for years, right? So this is not something new. It's funny. I was thinking when you were saying that, I was thinking again, back in the day, in the beginnings, and the name shall be changed to protect the innocent. But we presented some of my cigars in the very early stages of our branded business in tobacco to a gentleman that was running a very proper and established lounge in another market. And they were debanded for the purpose of smoking and trying. And I remember when we told him what they were, it was he covered it pretty well, but it was almost like he was subtly embarrassed to have admitted how much he liked it, because it was not a Cuban cigar. And I took, maybe no one else noticed it, but I did, because I've got Terminator vision sometimes. When people, they like trip the tripwire, like if they do something and I'm like, wait a minute, why did his eye move that way? What is he doing right now? What is he, And so, I think that at the core, true cigar smokers like fucking smoking good cigars. That's what it's all about. And these are good cigars, so they'll like smoking them. And now they're going to have more opportunity to do so, whether their hand is forced in the beginning stages by limited access to some of their go-to, Cuban stuff, or not. I think that, I think that they're going to have an eye-opening experience.
I would agree with you. I think that's what happens a lot of times when someone says, even again, kind of the sister aspect of this show, when you have people that are like, oh, I don't like bourbon or I don't like whiskey. And you're like, what have you tried? And you're like, I don't know. I tried bourbon. I didn't like it. And you're like,
I tried Captain Morgan's. I don't like bourbon.
You're like,
or whatever.
I had Captain Morgan's. I don't like rum. It's like, you're not drinking
so
the right kind of rum.
That's cool to hear. And I'm excited to see what happens going forward too. You know, and like we have Ray Cheshire who lives in Vietnam. He's tuned in and he has his opinions.
What's up, Ray?
See if I can get it up here on the screen. Turn the mouse on here again. It's just cool to. I'm excited to see it personally. Ray, I can tell you from my experience that it doesn't matter what you charge for Cuban cigars in a developing market. The people buying them are the 1%ers and couldn't give a shit what they cost.
Yeah, it's more about the access than the price, right?
Right.
You know, like I can't say I disagree. You know, but I think it's the availability or the lack thereof that will ultimately drive people into our arms.
I think what you might see also are the people going to some of the shops when they're traveling. If you go to like a Habanos SA, you go to with JJ Fox, you go to these places that are they've traveled there before. And they're like, man, last time I was there, they weren't this expensive, or they were. I've heard from people that hit certain markets that they're not even on the shelf anymore. Like their shelves are very bare. So if those start getting filled up with the New World cigars, I think you'll just see it. The 1%ers are going to get them from wherever. They're going to smoke them. They're going to buy them. They're going to have their sources. I'm not as worried about them. I'm more about the people that are more like casual smokers. I think you might see them becoming more regular smokers when there's more variety, and you're going to see a little bit more of a mimicking side of it, where you see what I saw like in Havana. They had like 8 or 10 cigars that you could buy individually. Everything else was by the box, which is the exact opposite of the American market. So I'm interested to see if you'll see more of that, where people are like, oh, I can just buy this one, this one, and this one, and try these 3 different cigars. And then if I like it, I can get a box so I can come back and try some more, as opposed to your typical Cuban buyers where they're buying a box of it because that's all they're allowed to do. I think there'll be a little bit more of a mirroring of the American buying experience, which I think personally will promote not only cigar smoking and enjoying smoking cigars, but it'll promote what's available, like you guys getting out there and getting on the shelves. I think it'll be interesting to see that. I'm
excited, man. Absolutely. I see it as a tremendous opportunity for us.
Absolutely. I don't know how long we have you, but we'll kind of wrap up. We're gonna talk about this bourbon that we have here, but I don't want to keep you, Matt. I know it's
I have to go bother another one of our illustrious sales associates. He is putting on a dinner for our brand this evening. So I'm going to go pop in and ruin his night.
That's perfect.
Enhance his night. I'm going to enhance it.
Perfect. You will.
Maniacally.
Yes. I did want to say, side note, before we let you go, we were on the ATF podcast. I think you were the first.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
Episode. So I know Pat Adams.
Yeah,
who was out at your place out there, and it was very cool because he sent me the first, because he used to be a customer at Tinder Box at Easton when he was working for another magazine, moved away, and he started talking to me back then about that ATF magazine idea. And when he launched it, he sent me with you on the cover, and then I think you were on their first podcast, and then with our connection, he had us on, I think, episode 5, so shortly thereafter, but. Just kind of a cool small world thing there that he he was boasting about meeting you and being out there and doing what you guys do out there.
Look, man, the cigar world is a very small world. It's a community, absolutely. And that's just reflective of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we appreciate your time. Cool. Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for sharing these cigars with us. And Jonathan, thanks for lining this up for sure. But
it only took us 375 shows, but I'm glad that we're here.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
But I am grateful for the invite, man, and
great having you.
I've really enjoyed the conversation, man, and I appreciate you having me on, man. Killer.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Matt. Love you, brother.
Yeah.
Love you, man. You guys go enjoy your brown liquids, and I'll see you next time.
All right,
man.
All right. Take care, guys.
Thank you, Jonathan, for setting that up. For everyone listening, we're going to continue kind of wrapping up part one here. We're going to talk briefly about the Watershed products here before we wrap up, if you guys are cool with that. Jonathan, are you sipping on, was it Weller I saw?
Yeah, I'm doing a little Weller Antique 107.
Nice. That's actually one of my favorites. I feel like that's gotten dogged over the years. That's like currency for most bourbon drinkers. And more people like the green, the blue, the special ones and all that stuff. And everyone's like, yeah, 107's okay.
No, I mean, it was actually a going away gift when I left Houston. My neighbor who does bourbon tastings brought it over to the house, and you know, it's one of my go-tos. It's one of my favorites, and yeah, it drank well tonight.
That's great. We are drinking tonight. It's the Watershed Fall Finishing Series. This is the current release. We already last episode we talked about the Port Barrel Finished.
Yeah.
And we had Ryan Vendrick on. But we are sipping on the Watershed Fall Finishing Series, the Apple Brandy Finished bottle. The first one, the Port Barrel one that we drank, is still available at it's exclusive to the Columbus market. It is at the Watershed Bottle Shop. This one you also have to pick up at the Columbus bottle shop. And the lottery ends today at midnight.
Yesterday.
It
ended yesterday, and earlier this evening
they released
they announced the winner. So they did it via email and text to let you know that you are winner, and you get to go to the distillery and purchase your bottle.
What will happen with this for anyone that is listening tonight? If you are interested in it, you're on the fence about this product, we're going to talk about it. And then we also have, this is batch number 5. We have batch number 4 here, a little bit left that I had in the bar. If you did not win the Watershed drawing, the lottery, and there are some that are not picked up, and I think sometimes they'll even do a round 2 of the lottery winners. Yeah. They'll kind of say, oh, okay, this, they'll do a round 2. If there are some available, and there are typically some available, not going to promise that, but they'll go on sale at the bottle shop on October 25th. So check your email, check the you said messages as well.
Yeah, I got a text message from Watershed as well saying that I won the right to buy a bottle.
So. Nice. So Nate, what do you think of this? You've been sipping on this tonight. I'll bring up some information on it.
So this is the 6-year. It's finished in the Apple Brandy Barrel. Of their fall releases, last year they did 3 fall releases. It was this one, it was the Nocino finish, and what was Maple. That's right. The Apple Brandy, they've been doing this one a while. Like Steve said, this is batch number 5, so this is the 5th year that they've done this one. The biggest issue I have with this bottle is that Apple Brandy.
Is the Apple Brandy?
Yeah, I've had their Apple Brandy.
Yeah, that's tough.
It's very sharp. It's kind of brash on the finish. It's got good flavor on the palate, but then the finish of it is just really in your face, kind of sharp.
Yeah.
When we had Ryan on last time and we had the Port Barrel, he had said, the focus of this was the bourbon should stand out, and then the Port Barrel should just kind of complement and add a little bit of extra to it, but not be the main focus. I think with the Apple Brandy, that finish,
it's tough to hide.
You can't hide it.
No, you can't.
And I think the Apple Brandy Barrel kind of takes away from the bourbon itself. It kind of overpowers, and it's a little sharp. After I finish the last sip in my glass that I have, I'm going to try batch 4.
I'm going to do that same.
So last year's batch 4 came in at 127.5 proof.
This one's coming in at 129.2.
Yeah, this one's coming in just a little bit hotter.
The barrel char on this is number 5.
So it's super deep alligator char.
You got a mash bill here, 72 corn, 21 rye, 7 malted barley, and it's aged in, and it's interesting because what we spoke with Ryan about the other bottles, it's aged in the Apple Brandy Barrel 10 to 12 months. So longer than...
The port was 10 months.
Okay.
but that's still, they're both still longer than most traditional bourbons finish. Like
and this is a 6-year age.
Yeah, most finish in like 4 to 6 months.
Right.
So when they did the port at 10 months, that's why we kept talking last time about the color. I mean, I kind of joked it looked like it was Dr. Pepper in the glass because it just had, it was super dark, but it had this red tint to it.
Yeah.
Even though it's been years since I've drank pop or Dr. Pepper, I still know what it looks like.
That's fair.
I used to. There was a day I drank way too much of that shit. So this one, like, it's still in the bottle, like it still looks like just about any of their products, any of their bourbons. Because if you look at their apple brandy on the shelf, it looks like a lot of brandies or cognacs. It's this really lighter bodied color to it.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a high corn mash bill whiskey kind of.
Mm-hmm.
But that apple brandy is super sharp, and this kind of exudes that as well. And I actually drank from my batch 4 a couple weeks ago, right before they announced the lottery of it. I was like, oh, I just tried that. And I haven't drank it since because I wanted to do a side-by-side, and I didn't know that this is what we were going to be drinking tonight. But yeah, you still get kind of the bourbon up front, but for me, the finish on this one, it's just really brash, in your face, and kind of sharp. So my second glass, I added a few drops of water to it, and that actually calmed the finish down and brought out a little bit more of those caramel and butterscotch notes of the whiskey itself.
So Nate, do you think if it would have been, wouldn't have been aged in the apple brandy barrels so long, it would have been something more appealing to you?
For me, I would venture to guess yes. It'd be speculation. But yeah, I think for me, because that apple brandy, it's a great question, Jonathan. Because that apple brandy is so sharp, I don't think you need as much time in that barrel to finish this product. Because like this, I think that overpowers. And if the whole goal is to highlight your stock bourbon, but then add some complexity to it with the finishing, I think you need to go less time in the barrel. Which is kind of hard to do because, like I said, I mean, they've done this product obviously before. I think with the port barrel, that's the first time they've ever done the port barrel finish.
It is.
And like Ryan said, that was 8 to 10 months in that port barrel, which, like I said, that's a long time, especially a ruby port barrel instead of a tawny. Because especially your first time, you're running the risk of that outshining your core product. But the port barrel didn't do that. It was still bourbon first, and then you got that port essence on the palate and on the finish. This one, I mean, they've done this 4 times previously, so I think they've got a good idea of what they're doing, because we even noted that, I think, last year when we did the Nocino finish, which was their 3rd batch, we had Wes on.
Yeah.
And Wes actually brought batch 1, batch 2, and batch 3, and we tried all 3 of those in succession. And I noted that here's what I liked about batch 1. Here's what I liked about batch 2. Batch 3 was the best of 1 and 2 put together. So I think by this point, they should be doing the same thing on batch 5 of the apple brandy finish. But I think unless this is what they're going for, I think it's still just a little too much apple brandy on the finish and takes away from the core product.
I think you want to be different. So the first time they did this apple brandy finish one, Jonathan, was for their 10-year anniversary. They are proud of their apple brandy, which understandably so. Great seller for them. But this was their 10th anniversary bottle. That's why this is already batch number 5, because they're at that 15-year mark. And I'm with Nate. I like this product. You have to be, for me, you have to be in the mood for it, and that's not a negative. I enjoyed it tonight. I enjoyed it when I tried it the first time. There was a few nights ago I was like, hey, you know what? We're probably gonna be talking about this. I'm gonna have a sip of this. And this was after a steak dinner. This is, I had a lot of different flavors kind of on my palate, and I took a few sips of it. I'm like, got what Nate's talking about. Tonight with a cigar, especially with that hit and run, I haven't added any water to this. I really enjoyed this bottle tonight. I think this is, what are you having with it? This is a nightcap, but it's got that kind of the finish. Oddly enough, it's not like what Nate was saying, but it's the finish that's more like in your face. So you're like, whoa, okay. It kind of kicks it up as you finish that sip. If you're sipping on the fourth batch, this has also been open for about a year.
Yeah, so it's had a chance to oxidize a little bit.
A little bit different, but
it is. That's what I'm sipping on right now.
The thing I like about this product, if you like a little bit of something more unique, if you think you want something that's got a little bit of a punch to it, and you're not looking for, with those finishes, you're gonna have some different flavors. You're not looking for that real oaky, the real typical, vanilla, molasses. This is
that
not
toasted barrel
finish. Not what you're getting here. You're getting something that it's right there on the bottle. This is apple brandy finished, and I think a lot of bourbon drinkers have never tried brandy, let alone an apple brandy. So it'll be very unique. And I think going into it with that mindset, without just saying like pour a glass, hand it over to Jonathan there and say, try this, let me know what you think. You're going to sip on it like, oh, it's good. Like, oh, what is this? Is the reaction. So it's something that's unique. It is barrel strength. So you're getting all of it. You're getting all of this flavor. There's no misleading here, So I enjoy this bottle. I'm interested to try this. But for those that are a part of this kind of wanting to pick up some, especially locally, I'm seeing Watershed. We talked about it when Ryan was here last episode. You see it at other states. Their distribution for a local distillery for us is one of the best and biggest as far as their reach now. And you're not going to see these yet elsewhere, but there are some of their core products. Their core product portfolio is growing, like the uncut, unfiltered, the yellow bottle. It's going to be a regular product. The rye they're trying to push out as a regular product. Small batches, but still regularly released. So, definitely check this one out. And then the maple finish one will be coming out soon. So we'll probably be reviewing that in November at some time is my goal there. As soon as we get that sample, hopefully. So definitely check this out. Check out Watershed Distillery. They've been great friends and partners with the show for some time, and we really appreciate that. If you checked out the social media for Bourbon and BS podcast, I posted recently, last week actually, Nate and I had an opportunity to tour the facility, try their menu at the restaurant. If you're in the Columbus area, you're a bourbon drinker, or you like any spirits, or you're looking for some kind of nice atmosphere and food, definitely check it out. Definitely check it out. We had a great time, and they're expanding.
Oh gosh, I took a video.
Extensively expanding.
So I took a video when we got to do the tour of where they house their barrels, and the good thing is the landlords that own the building love their stuff, and they had the opportunity. Someone moved out of one of their spaces, and they're like, "Hey, do you guys want to knock down part of the wall and move over?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure, we'll do that." And we walked in there, and it's bigger than what they currently have. And
wow.
I took a video of it, and like it's going to at least more than double their storage capacity on site. And then also they're talking about possibly moving all the distillation across the street into that space as well, and getting
that's bigger, be all bourbon,
bigger stills and bigger cookers, and allowing the restaurant to then take over what is currently the distillation area, for either more seating in the restaurant or storage. But they're definitely expanding. And that means, there's a lot of companies out there that are expanding recently, and that just means they're going to be able to put away more product and possibly do more things. That's like when we had Ryan on last time, I brought up uncut, unfiltered batch 3. Like they just put that out there on the market with no press release, no social media.
Sean, do you want to
Just
try this?
here's
4?
uncut, unfiltered batch 3. It's on the shelf,
Batch
readily
4.
available.
The one before.
They're looking at making that a staple
5.
on the shelf product at all times. And
Nice.
by being able to have more space to put away more barrels and make more, like that's going to be huge.
I will say, sipping on batch number 4, the apple brandy is right up front.
Really?
That's what I think. This one. This is batch 4. This is last.
Sounded like that's what Nate was saying about batch number 5.
I think the apple brandy is right up front in this one. It's very bright. It's in your face. Where the other one's finished in it. Like it is finished.
So,
you're finished. I'm not trying to use the terminology.
So I had to ask our contact a question about that, because I still remember the original mash bill of Watershed, and I forget when they changed their mash bill.
Is this the old mash bill?
I'm wondering if batch 4 was, one of the last editions of their old mash bill that went into the apple brandy, and then what we're featuring tonight, batch 5, is that new, because this is 6 years before it was finished,
Right?
And I'm thinking it was about 6 years ago when they changed their mash bill, because the batch 4 tastes like that original 5-grain mash bill that they had. And that mash bill was very divisive for bourbon drinkers because of one of the grains that was in it. And I taste that grain.
Maybe that's what I'm getting. It's definitely brighter.
I taste that grain in batch 4, and I don't taste it in batch 5. And actually, to me, batch 4 is not as apple brandy in your face on the finish. I think that's why I like batch 4 more than batch 5.
Interesting. Well, you got a batch 5 coming your way.
I do. Well, I gotta go buy it for $90.
Yeah,
I'm going to.
No one's holding you to it, but you heard it here first,
Going
folks.
to.
This is where we rate it, and we'll go into part 2 here. Thank you again, Jonathan, for lining up Matt Booth for tonight's episode, part 1. A little longer. Obviously, we wanted to maximize our time with Matt on the show. Didn't want to hold him to both parts. Good 2 to 3 hours, but definitely a longer part 1 here tonight. So we appreciate, Jonathan, you setting that up and Matt's time. And hopefully it's not the last time he's going to be on the show. Hopefully you enjoyed it. But this is where we're going to do a rating. It's out of 10, the whiskey, the cigar, and the pairing, 3 different ratings. And Jonathan, you can go ahead if you want to do it as well with the Weller Antique 107. If you want to start with the Room 101 Hit and Run.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, that was my first time smoking the Hit and Run. And I smoked the original years ago and can't tell you exactly how much I loved it or didn't love it. But this cigar, to me, it brings out, like what I said earlier, the best in William Ventura, what they can do with a, medium plus strength level that is refined and tasty. And as Nate said over and over, clean on the palate. Great retro held to it. I think it's a cigar smoker's cigar. I think it's for people that really appreciate the flavors in cigars. It's a great price point. It's in that like $12 to $13 range. I don't think we really went over that, but it's an everyday release from Room 101. I had the Robusto. I would like to try it in a Toro as well, but I give the cigar a 9. I mean, it's just nice. It's right up with what I like to smoke, and I like a refined medium plus cigar. I thought it was great. The Weller Antique 107, always love it. It's always fantastic. I'll give it a 9 as well. It's just one of my go-tos. It's a memory whiskey for me. First time I had it, it kind of opened me up to whiskey a little bit and what we're getting into. So I think the pairing was really well. I was kind of worried that 107 might overwhelm a William Ventura cigar, but it did not at all. And it did really well together. So I give the pairing a 9 as well. Some 9s across the board.
Nice. Yeah, we're drinking 129 over here. So
yeah,
don't worry about that 107.
Yeah.
Nate, how about you?
Unlike Jonathan, like 107's not one of my favorites. I keep a bottle on hand just in case you come over.
Nice. I like that.
Um,
Hey, can I try something? No, the 107 is yours. Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
What about that bottle? 107. Okay. Thanks, Nate.
Oh no, you're more than welcome.
I
to
know. I'm fucking with you.
anything in my cabinet. The only reason I have that bottle though is you. So the batch 5 for Watershed apple brandy finish. So last time, just to give some perspective, last time when we had Ryan on and we did the port barrel, I believe I gave that one an 8.5 because I said I wanted to leave some room for the other fall finishing series.
Okay.
To see where those fell in line with that one. That being said, this one, I'm going to give it an 8.
Okay. You prefer the port.
I prefer the port over the apple brandy finish. I also prefer batch 4 of the apple brandy over batch 5. To me, it's that finish. For me, it's too sharp. It's too brash.
Yeah.
Still a solid product. When I added some water to it, that made it better for me. And normally I don't like adding water to stuff.
Proof it down a little bit.
But it softened that finish. It took away some of that harshness and brightness on the finish and focused then more on the original bourbon that went into it. So while it's great to have something that's barrel strength, and people who know me know I love cask strength bourbons, it's one that I would definitely add some water to improve down a little bit, because I think then you'll hit a sweet spot of the bourbon and the apple brandy barrel coming together.
Yeah.
At some point, you'll find a sweet spot where everything's there and not necessarily muted in a bad way.
It's good.
But that's for me. So I give the bottle an 8.
Well, the hit and run.
The hit and run, I'm going to give that an 8.5. Definitely a solid smoke. What really stood out to me the most was that cleanliness on the finish. I didn't say it while Matt was on. Jonathan, the cigar that kind of reminded me of a little bit is the Diesel Mizunara.
Yeah.
So we've had some diesels, and I've actually thought about bringing some and actually featuring that on the podcast if we ever get Jonathan on again.
You could send us.
We can get JA back on for that.
Yeah. So we've had a lot of the diesel cigars before. You got the original where the binder was aged in a Rabbit Hole Cave Hill barrel. You got the one that was aged in a PX Sherry barrel. Then there's the Boxer Grail where it's aged in the rye barrel. Earlier this year at my shop, I brought in the Mizunara, which is a Japanese type of oak. And the thing that stood out to me the most about that cigar was the cleanliness of the finish.
All about the clean, man.
So when I smoked the hit and run, that's what it reminded me of with the way that cigar finished, was that cleanliness, the crispness. It didn't linger. There wasn't a bitterness to it. Very different flavor profiles. But the structure of what you were getting was very comfortable. And it's not like you're sitting there tasting oak. It's just that the way that oak imparts a cleanliness to that tobacco leaf, as well as it does different whiskeys that does, like, that's what it reminded me of. And it made me like that cigar more than I thought I would.
Because of the clean finish.
Yes.
No cranberries.
And like I said, like, there was that finesse about the cigar where, like I said, the first time I smoked it, I didn't even know it was a Maduro. The whole time I was smoking it. I wouldn't
have thought that.
I didn't know it was a Maduro.
No.
Because I smoke a lot of Maduros, and that it didn't taste like one. It's not one of those cigars that's just gonna, knock your socks off in terms of the palate and flavor. It's just everything's there in balance. Not one leaf is trying to outshine anything else. You kind of have to search for what it is you're smoking and what you're getting out of it, which, if you're smoking just to smoke, that's probably not the cigar for you. If you're someone who's going to be sitting down and you like to pay attention to what it is you're smoking and the flavors that are there, that's the cigar for you.
The cigar smokers smoke.
Yeah. And like I said, the aroma before I even lit it, that made me super excited to light it up. So 8 on the whiskey, 8.5 on the cigar.
The
Pairing, if I go whiskey to cigar, because of the apple brandy, that's at like a 6. That sharpness, and then going to the cigar, it's a little bit much on the palate. It just kind of, there's a lot of heat on the tongue that I don't really care for.
once it hits your lips.
But then when I went cigar to whiskey, the cigar brought out more of the bourbon of the bottle.
Okay.
It brought out a little bit more of the vanilla and caramel.
Yeah.
So the cigar actually enhanced the whiskey if you go that direction.
Yeah. And it stood up.
So that direction, I give that pairing an 8.
Nice.
But to go whiskey to cigar, that's a 6.
The cigar, I'm going to give it a 9. I really enjoyed it. That was just a nice, refreshing cigar to have. I mentioned earlier. Yeah, I may try that diesel one that you're talking about, then, Nate, because if it's something similar to that, it'd be kind of cool to try out. So, and I think
it's a little bit more dollars.
Is it?
It's a limited edition, and it's made by AJ. So it's what's interesting about that is, like, I mean, they couldn't.
Sonara.
It's the one we sampled on here.
No, we didn't sample that.
Okay.
So
Sorry.
what I'm saying, like, AJ and William Ventura couldn't be more different in their blending styles, and that's what's really cool about the cigar world to me, because Nate's picking up these similarities in that clean finish, but it's a very different smoking experience. But I like that. I mean, that's really cool, that similarity that you found in those two very different blending styles.
Yep, I'll definitely have to try that. The first bourbon I had, not the apple one, but the other one.
No, it was both.
They're both apple brandy.
Batch number 5 is the first one. That's the feature.
Okay, that's the one. Yeah, that one was pretty good. I'll probably give that an 8.5. And I agree with Nate on the pairing. I'd do an 8.5 as well. I think, again, perfect time of year to have that first cigar, the first one we had, the featured one.
Does it make you want to go apple picking?
Yeah, or sit by a fire and eat an apple and smoke. I don't know, but it's that whole campfire feel. Like it all complements it, So
yeah,
as a pairing, I think, like the way Nate said, it was look out.
Someone didn't put the other bottle in the right spot.
Okay,
go ahead, Sean.
Me. Okay, yeah. So I really enjoyed both of it, and it's a perfect night for it. So
good.
Thank you.
Absolutely
beautiful.
For me, the whiskey tonight, it's tough to not talk about the pairing for me, simply because I smoked the Hit and Run for a while before I took a sip of the whiskey tonight, because especially when we have a guest like Matt Booth, you have the principal, the owner of the company.
Oh, yeah.
This is his creation. I was kind of smoking that before I even took a sip of it. So
you don't necessarily want to go in raw.
Well, what I'm saying is I had a lot of the cigar experience before taking a sip of the whiskey. So I agree. So going back from 4 to now 5, which I will be doing, the current one, it does have that stronger finish. It does, like I said, it has a little bit of a punch towards the end of it. It's a unique bottle, but I like it. I'll give it an 8. I think this one of the series, it may be my least favorite, but that's to be determined, because we haven't featured the maple finished or the Nocino finished of this year on there.
Not of this year, correct.
We got 2 more coming, but 8 on the bottle. It's worth a pour, especially if you're in the Columbus area and you, like I said, go to Watershed, have dinner, see if you can do a tour, all that stuff. I believe they do keep some of this for their restaurant bar. So you can have a glass of this, and if there are any more available on the 25th for sale, then you can go ahead and hopefully buy a bottle if they have some left. If you're on the fence about it, you've had some of their apple brandy bottles before, kind of like the number 4. I'm of the opinion that this has a more of an apple brandy sharpness or brightness at the end of it, more bourbon up front. So take that for what it's worth. If you like number 4, this is a different drinking experience. The cigar, I enjoyed this cigar. I agree with everyone else on this panel so far. I would give the cigar 8.5. I think this is a very nice smoking experience. It doesn't blow my socks off, but that's okay. It's a good cigar. It's a cigar smoke, like you said, cigar smoker's cigar. This is an enjoyable smoke, nice blend. I was actually very interested when he said that this is going to be has a little bit of Pennsylvania broadleaf, a little bit of Connecticut broadleaf. I would not have expected that by smoking the cigar, honestly. If you don't like the broadleaf, if you don't like Pennsylvania broadleaf, you might pick up more of those flavors and it might turn you off. But I think they balanced it out. I think Matt balanced this out very, very nicely to keep it a medium-bodied smoke and a great construction. It's definitely worth a smoke if you haven't had it yet. The pairing, not bad. This is a pretty decent pairing, but again, I was more heavy. I didn't really do the back and forth. I think I was more cigar having Matt on, so I was constantly going cigar to whiskey. So what Nate said, take that for what it's worth as well. I didn't do as much of the vice versa of the whiskey than the cigar. I was all cigar then whiskey. I think that might have also maybe impacted my opinion of this bottle versus Nate's as well. We don't always agree, but that might have been part of it. I was definitely more cigar first, then whiskey. So
if we always agreed, where would the fun be?
Right. No, the pairing, I'll give it 7.5. I think it was a nice pairing, but having a 129 proof bottle versus a medium bodied smoke, you're gambling every time you do that. So in my opinion, that's where you're at. So that being said, we're going to round out part 1 here. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. We're happy to have you guys back. We'll be back here in a few moments for part 2. Got about an hour for part 2 here. And Jonathan, we have kind of your suggestion on here, and we'll introduce that. But we'll be back. If you guys are listening to the audio, we'll be back in 2 weeks with David Welch from Altadis USA. And it should be a fun episode as well. But that's going to be 2 weeks from today, I think the 23rd. And if you're in the Columbus area, on the 24th, we have kind of the season-ending event at Tinder Box at Easton with David Welch and Altadis USA. It's the prime rib dinner. So there's already half sold out within a week. So that's fantastic. If you guys want to grab a spot, it's going to be a prime rib dinner. You're going to be smoking from Altadis USA, one of our sponsors. You will be smoking a limited edition Romeo Julieta, the vintage Lotte. You're also going to be smoking a Monte Cristo 1935 anniversary number 2. You're also going to be sipping on a special Old Forester bottle and have prime rib, veggies, potatoes, and some freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. $75 plus tax. There are 20 spots available left so far. Get them before they're gone. Guys, happy Whiskey Wednesday. Stay tuned for part 2 with Jonathan Herring. Cheers. Ooh, that was good.
Been a while since we've had a glass clink. So our contact at Watershed did confirm that it was around 2018 when they changed mash
So
bills.
this is the old mash bill.
So batch 4 is the old mash bill.
Must be the different
Batch
flavor.
5 that we are drinking now is their new 3 grain. So they went from a 5 grain to a 3 grain mash bill. What we're drinking now, when you think about it, is the first year of that 3 grain mash bill finished in their apple brandy barrels.
Got it.
Guys, I'll be right back. I'm going to grab a cigar in case it's needed.
Absolutely. We were going to get started, but that's fine.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's cool. It's cool. We'll just sit in silence. That's good.
You guys can talk amongst yourself.
Are you still on, even though you're not in front of the camera?
Yes.
Oh.
It's going to be like Naked Gun, where he leaves his mic on and goes.
Yeah, if you're going to go pee, you probably should turn that mic off.
Or he's singing in the bathroom and Queen Elizabeth's back there. Like, what the?
Ray, I don't know what you're sick of waiting for.
Well, oh gosh. So 2 weeks ago, when we were supposed to have an episode and life happened.
Oh, you mean my fiance had an emergency surgery?
That.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, guys. Jesus.
What do you mean there's not an episode? Yeah, there's been an emergency. Sorry, we couldn't do an episode that week. Like,
I don't know why you couldn't have done one, Nate.
I mean, without Steve, like, I mean,
You can.
I could have done like a room chat and stuff like that, but
You could have done a full episode. I believe in you.
well,
Access to StreamYard. You don't have a laptop anymore.
yeah, I don't have a laptop.
So the reason I went to get a cigar is I wanted to smoke this. Can you see it? No.
Oh, that's the event only room 101. That's really good.
That's the golden bucket.
Ryan Ponis gave me one of those. I smoked it. It's very good.
He's not allowed to do that.
We had an event privately. It's none of your business.
Yeah,
I don't know why I have to get involved in things that don't concern you. It was a gift. All right.
no, can't do that.
We had an event. We had a moment. All right. Let's get started here.
All right.
Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 326, part 2, Beyond the BS. And we are with Jonathan Herring from Meyer & Dutch, SDG, Forged, all sorts of stuff. Right? I don't know, everything.
Yeah. It's
excited
Meyer
about
& Dutch
this,
now. Yeah, no. STG is the parent company, and I've kind of worked across the company, and I've enjoyed all of it.
It's good. It's good.
Do you guys have zipper bags for cigars by any chance?
This is good content for part 2.
No, seriously.
Yeah, we can get you some bags. Yeah, we can get you some bags.
All right.
All right. I'll get you some bags.
No, because my two distributors I work with directly, every time I've tried to ask for bags, like, no, we're out. I'm like, okay, cool.
Try getting matches.
I'm putting everything in paper wine bags.
I got you, brother.
I don't have any.
Kroger. Anyways, so part 2, first of all, I want to thank our sponsors. Got you guys at patreon.com/bourbonandbs podcast. Thanks for the continued support, the monthly contributions. Also, one-time contributions, Venmo at Bourbon and BS. We appreciate you guys keeping us going on this show. We are doing it now currently every other Wednesday. We'll see if it goes back up to every week, but we wanted to focus on the content and guests and everything. So a little easier on the schedules for everyone to do every other week. So hopefully you guys are enjoying it. And to everyone like Ray, we apologize. He says, just for clarity, I didn't complain at all about missing episodes because someone was at the hospital. Good backtrack. Oh, he was commenting on Jonathan's comment. Never mind. For everyone that's interested, Kristen's doing great. Thanks for asking. Also want to thank Tinder Box at Easton, where we're based out of. Normally, the cigars will be coming out from them for the featured cigars, unless we have a special guest on. But we do appreciate you guys. They do have some Room 101, the Big Payback. They also have the Los Santos Deluxe that Matt Booth has his hands on.
Los Santos or Los Statos?
Los Statos, excuse me. Los Statos Deluxe. LSD. Los Statos Deluxe.
Los Statos. Because I remember you saying Santos and Matt saying Statos.
Listen to Matt. It's his stuff. Yeah. But yeah, the Connecticut, the what is the white? Is it Sumatra?
The white is the original.
I think it's Sumatra.
Yeah.
And then the Maduro as well. Those are available at Tinder Box at Easton, so check that out. Altadis USA, thank you for the continued support. Normally, we're going to have the second cigar of the night from them, but because we are focusing on some of the products from Matt Booth and what he has his hands on, we are smoking the Sancho Panza, the Extra Cheeto. Is that right?
Yeah.
Cheeto. We're smoking that tonight, so thank you to Forged Cigars for getting that to us. And we appreciate that continued support from you guys as well.
Do you remember the old Sancho Panza?
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever smoke any of those?
Way back, yeah. This is better.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, like, there was a time I remember Sancho Panza, like, getting some really good ratings.
Yeah.
And then I would smoke them, and I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't know.
Yeah, the funny thing is they're both Cuban equity brands, LSD and Sancho Panza.
I didn't know about LSD.
Yeah, LSD was a super small one, and they were both ones we got, and Matt's kind of revitalized them. And actually, Sancho Panza is on the general side, and Los Statos is on the Forge side. Yeah,
got it.
which no one cares about in this listening.
Well, I
You
guess
know, it's interesting.
It depends on the
stuff there.
rep.
Yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Also, BS Cigar Company, the gold and silver are available. The gold is made by Placencia. The silver is made by Espinosa.
So Sunday at the shop, I smoked a BS Gold.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you the last time I smoked a BS Gold.
It was really good.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Because I've been trying to
going.
smoke so many different other cigars, and I'd been sitting on some in my humidor for a while. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna smoke a BS Gold. It's been a while. It's good to revisit it.
Good.
Steve, I thought that said for skirts at first. I was like, you guys are doing skirts now?
Where's this? Oh, no, it says shirts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Have some more 107.
I was sitting far away.
Buyjack.com/bourbon and BS for shirts, hoodies, 3/4 sleeves, ladies V's, and also the podcast t-shirts. Good swag on there. Check that out. Appreciate that support as well.
Got some great compliments about the podcast shirt Sunday at the store from first-time customers.
Nice.
I wore the gray yesterday.
Nice. That's
out and about. The OG. Yeah, it's still holding up well. Hasn't shrunk too much, but yeah, doing well.
It's more about the lettering. Has that held up?
Well, you can't really see anything on it anymore, but the shirt itself is fine. Yeah.
That particular one, that was the original. You had one of the original because you were
with a logo on the back.
Yeah, that was a screened one. That was the new ones actually hold up a lot better.
They do.
Yeah, they're going to be printed on there and they hold up a lot better.
I kind of like that faded version though. It's kind of cool.
I agree.
That's why I bought two.
All right, Jonathan, what are we talking about here? Sharp curves ahead.
I don't know. I mean, my thought process on this was, I think that we often, get in a comfortable zone at some point in our life where things seem to always be going well. And then you get hit with a couple of different angles, maybe a work angle, a personal angle, a friend angle or whatever. And it gets really tough. And so I guess what I was thinking was, how do you prepare yourself in those comfortable zones and those comfortable times for the sharp curves that are coming up? And I like that you said sharp curves because I said something else, but it kind of like relates it to taking care of your car and keeping it in the best condition. So when you run into conditions, what you run into, you're prepared for. So it's kind of a double meaning there, which I really like. But I think, I think
really
it's
good at phrasing.
Yeah, phrasing. No, I just think it's interesting, like when you're in that comfort zone when things are going well, and we always know there's something around the corner. Kind of, how do we prepare ourselves? How do we put ourselves in the best position to be able to handle that when it does come?
Is there anything specific you wanted to talk about with that, or are you just trying to frame in the conversation? Something that brings it up. You don't have to be. You don't have to share if you're not comfortable, but if you are.
No, I just think I think it's a kind of general thing that we all go through. I think generally when we're at our comfort zone, something's going to hit at some point. Something else is going to hit from the other side. I think a lot of times with work, I think that's a really easy one to do. I mean, you're in a nice lane and it seems to be going really well. And a lot of times something will hit from the side and kind of blindside you. And it's kind of, how are you prepared? And I think so much of it is just that day to day that you've talked about so much on this podcast, that day to day doing what needs to be done, whether it's like physically with yourself or in your relationships or in your job, doing that day to day. And then that way you're bolstered when something comes, around the corner there.
So hearing you say that and using the metaphor of driving a car, right? I think one of the biggest killers of a lot of good stability, ironically, is getting comfortable. Use the metaphor first, and we can talk about life after that. If you're driving down the road on a highway or whatever, or driving down a country road or whatever it might be, and you put the cruise control on, you kind of lean back in the seat, you got one hand on the steering wheel, kind of listening to music or a podcast or having a conversation with someone in the car. Now you're getting comfortable, and when the road conditions change, which they will, you don't have a straight road all the time, right? It's not always cruise control on. There's traffic, there's sharp curves ahead, whatever it is. If you're not doing your due diligence and staying alert or doing your best to pay attention to the road and the surroundings, the responsibility as a driver, if you're not paying attention, if you are paying attention, you should be prepared for it. You see the warning signs coming up saying the sharp curves ahead or traffic ahead, construction ahead, whatever it is, you will be ready for that. If you aren't paying attention, you're texting, you're doing all the things I just mentioned, and something comes up, you are not prepared for it because you weren't paying attention. I think in life, no matter what the situation is, a lot of times the things that catch you off guard is if you are complacent, you're comfortable, and you have lost your drive and your focus on a lot of things that you've been working on. I'm of the opinion that some of the best work, the best attention to detail for a lot of people that aren't always on, which is very difficult. Very few people are like that, in my opinion. But it's what happens that you're not prepared for things is because you have become so comfortable, so complacent that you're not paying attention anymore. You're not putting in the work that you did that got you to the point that you are. You got comfortable because you got to that next benchmark. You got to that next relationship, the next job, and all of a sudden your annual review comes up and they're like, well, you're not really producing like you used to. You know, you go through life in a relationship and we've talked about it a lot of times, like on the Valentine's Day episode, where it's like, it took you a holiday on the calendar to buy the flowers, to show that partner that you're attentive, that you're showing them affection, all that stuff. You get so complacent in the day-to-day stuff that you aren't the person that got you to that point. You've lost yourself in that. It's like, again, you're cruising down, and before we had self-driving cars, which I still don't trust, I think that that's where you're at. That's why you just drove off the cliff, or that's why you end up in a ditch, is because you weren't paying attention. You weren't that person. You got so comfortable in that life, in that lifestyle, or that relationship, that job, that you hear from people. It's like, well, what have you done for me lately? And you're like, well, I mean, what about when I made that, big deal a year and a half ago? It's like, that's not how this works. You finally get the girl and you're in this relationship, or you get that to that point in that day-to-day life you're talking about, it does become mundane. Because a lot of, I'd say majority of people, they go through these periods in life that it's not necessarily too late, but you have now created a sense of reality that everything's good, but it's the same over and over again. Because what was really good is the relationship or the job that when you had that hunger, when you were trying to impress, when you're trying to do your best and express everything that you can, that got you to that point. And now things are, in your mind, quote, air quote, good and exciting. It's not exciting anymore.
But Steve, I think where the metaphor breaks down with the car. So the car is a one-pronged thing, right? And in our lives, let's say, if we want to put it into 4 prongs, we have relationships, like romantic relationships, family relationships, jobs, and you could say health, that you're focusing on. So you have 4 different things that you're focusing on there. And maybe your job, you can go 5 there. So you have all these different things that you're having to focus on at the same time. And it's very easy to pour yourself into one of these fingers of the glove, you know what I mean? And to really excel in this one area and let some of the other stuff go. Not call your mom like you should, not bring the flowers home like you should, not do that extra in your job or whatever. And I think, the challenge is that balance. And it's, I find it tough. I think the average human finds it tough. The more time you're spending with your wife or your fiance, maybe your friends are being left out of the loop, or your job's being left out of the loop, or whatever it is. So I think it's finding that balance is tough. And I think it's something as men and women and people we all deal with is trying to figure out that balance in our life.
I would agree completely. I think sometimes when you do neglect, it's all, to your point, it kind of feeds into each other, right?
Yeah.
You bring up like the health thing. If you're not taking care of yourself, obviously you can't take care of anything else, anyone else. If you're not, if you're just letting yourself go, that breeds, that's a whole nother conversation with the fact that it breeds different mental capacities. You're not firing all cylinders. Now all of a sudden you got different emotions coming up, different things of depression. You look yourself in the mirror, you don't feel attractive. You're not like who you were, all of those types of things that absolutely affects the job, the personal relationships, your romantic relationships, and the relationship with yourself in the mirror, which I think is an important one as well. That's again, working on yourself first. Even though you can put others first, it doesn't mean you stop working on yourself first so that you can do that. I'm of the opinion that I like what you said, if you put too much into one of those prongs, the fingers in the glove, whatever it is, you put too much into one aspect, you only have a certain amount of time in the day every day, right? That's a given. So you have to find the balance. I agree, but there are times that, to go back to, not to beat it down, but you go back to the maintenance, like you were talking about the car, right? You have to make sure that the vessel that you're taking is ready for some of those things so that you can take care of if there is a turn ahead, if you have to hit brakes quick. So you can't neglect any of those things, but the continuing maintenance on that, right? It's, to me, that's communication. That's open communication. If you have a partner, it's open communication with them all the time. You can talk about you struggling with it. You can talk about, like, going forward, I need to focus a little bit more on the job. There should be no surprises. That's the preventative maintenance there, is that you're able to communicate the best you can, first, again, with you in the mirror, and then also with your employer if need be. There's the, talking to your partner if need be. There is making time and saying, I'm sorry, I need to make sure that I go on walks. I need to make sure that I'm stretching. I need to make sure that whatever your exercise is, I need to make sure that I'm eating at the right times. People that say, oh, I haven't eaten lunch, I forgot to eat, and stuff like that. All of those things, it's that preventative maintenance on your day-to-day life should be, I think, the most important part, so that you can be prepared for when things go wrong, or there's a sharp turn, or you need to focus a little bit more over here. You need to be able to assess that, have that continuous kind of self-assessment, and also communicate with all the parties involved. Because if you're not communicating, then there's surprises, there's neglect, there's not just neglect to a partner, but neglect to your job and all this stuff. It's constantly shifting. When you say balance, I agree with you, but even on top of that, or along with that, I think the balance is it's more of a healthy feed to the balance of, if you are able to do your best to assess what's going on and communicate with the parties involved, first and foremost yourself.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really positive way to look at it, and I think it's a healthy way to look at it. I mean, my mom just got diagnosed with cancer, and it was on top of another hit that I just taken in another area. And for me, like for you, I know that like health and your physical fitness is possibly somewhere you could get lost in. Like, that's something that's important to you, and it's easy for you to jump into that and say, hey, that's going to be my priority right now. And for me, like, my relationship with my wife, or maybe my relationship with my friends, is kind of my easy thing to jump into. And so sometimes when something, I don't want to say on the peripheral, but something that's not one of my easy focus points, like, my mother, I know that sounds terrible, but it's not my easy way to go. You know what I mean? And having to divert to divert attention and divert focus and divert resources from certain areas to take them to another. I find that tough sometimes, and some things that seem so obvious and so easy to do, I think to other people, we all have our different focuses and our different things that were our strengths.
Yeah.
And that's what I struggle with. And Nate, you got anything here, man? I feel like Steve and I are just talking.
No, I do. So when Steve put up the topic, sharp curves ahead, you guys brought up the idea of when things are going smooth and then all of a sudden like there's trouble. The first thing that came to my mind is, what if suddenly like you have issues in multiple areas?
Yeah.
You got an issue going on in the home life, you got an issue going on at work. Like, how does if you've got multiple things,
when it rains, it pours.
Yeah. If you've got multiple areas of your life that you feel like you're coming under attack, like they're not only does it weigh you down, but I think a lot of us, sometimes we almost hit the point where we're like, well, what can I do? Like, do I throw in the towel? Like, do I stop trying? Do I stop caring? Like
no.
If you've got multiple areas of your life that are always beating you up, it's like, okay, do I cut out? Like, no, that's kind of the quitter mentality. You don't just necessarily cut those aspects out of your life, but so sharp curves ahead. The very first thing that came to my mind is there's this road. It's nicknamed Tail of the Dragon. It runs from North Carolina to Tennessee.
Yeah.
It's an 11-mile stretch of road that a lot of bikers and car enthusiasts drive on. In 11 miles, you have 318 curves.
Wow.
And it's one of the most dangerous stretches of road because you have people that are overly aggressive and they lose control. And so it's like, okay, how do you manage that when it's one thing when you're driving straight and all of a sudden you have a sharp curve, but what if it's nothing but curves? Like, how do you maintain a sense of progress?
Stay alert.
You have to stay alert. But then like if every single day, like there's a curve going this way and then the next day it's going back the other way.
Because what do you do on a curve, Nate?
Like,
you have to slow down, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you have to slow down.
And so that impedes progress. And so when you're having curve after curve after curve, your progress is impeded.
And sometimes when all of a sudden you realize that your progress is being impeded, like it's one thing if you're driving and all of a sudden you hit a bump in the road, it's like, okay, I can recover from that. You do whatever you do, whatever the situation is, you recover from that. But when it's curve after curve, like I think that's where a lot of people struggle, is because that compounding issue, you get one issue after another and it just kind of bogs you down. You don't feel like you're going anywhere. You're still making progress technically down the road, but maybe it's not as fast as you want it to be. It's not as efficient as you want it to be. So like, how do you stay the course and, keep pushing forward, however slow it may be? Like you're still trying to get to where you're going. And I think
Steve had a great point on that.
Hang on.
Which
you have
one?
an answer? You get it somewhere?
Well,
or you asking? Like, I'm not.
No,
you have an answer, or are you asking questions for conversation?
Both.
Okay.
Part of which I was going to say for closing remarks, but I'll go ahead. I think also
Got to come up with new closing remarks, I guess.
Yeah, I know. God dang.
Go on.
So that road's not going to stay curved forever.
Yeah.
And so then what do you do when the curve ends and now you're back onto straight highway? And so sometimes, and I've experienced this recently, where it just seemed like day after day life was beating me down, and I just wanted to get through day after day, regardless of all the negative thoughts. I just wanted to get to the next day instead of focusing on like an end goal. My focus became on getting to the next day, and then when that day hit, getting to the next day. And And then finally, like all of a sudden, the road opened up, and now we're back on straight highway again. It's like, there was something that happened in one of those aspects of my life that all of a sudden I'm seeing the road down the future. I can see what's ahead of me, and it kind of created a revitalized vigor to push forward, put the foot on the gas, and go for it. And there are I think there are some times in our lives where we go through so many curves, we feel like we've been beaten up in so many aspects of our life that when the road finally opens up, we're still seeing curves. And so we never get back on the gas because we're afraid of that next curve. Like, we don't want to get too cocky. We don't want to get too confident, because that's the biggest issue that the Tail of the Dragon has, is you have people that try and push it beyond what either they're capable of or what their vehicle is capable of. And they end up wiping out or going into a ditch, going off the road, and it ends up in a crash. And so people go through that stretch, and then when it finally hits straight road, they're so paranoid about crashing because they've gone through so many curves, they've gone through so many personal struggles, that they're afraid to get back on the gas, even when it opens up again. Like,
so what's your suggestion for that, though? Yeah, I mean,
you got to drive the road.
I like that.
Whatever the road offers you, because not every, I mean, sometimes, okay, you know what? This is a really bad stretch of road. Is there an exit? Can I get off that road? Can I pull over, stop?
Rest area.
Yeah, is there rest? Yeah, that sounds good right about now. But like,
we can talk about something else.
No, I meant like literally.
Oh, between your house and mine.
No, going out to the side.
All right, we'll finish your thought, and then you can go hit the outhouse, and Jonathan and I will talk to you.
But no, that's one of the things that first came to my mind when I saw the topic pop up. Is a lot of times when we think of sharp curves, we think of, okay, there's a curve. What if you're on Tail of the Dragon? What if you're on Pikes Peak, where it's just curve after curve, and if you miss that curve, you're like plunging. I think there's a lot of times in life where we feel that way, where we sometimes get so beaten down by the journey that when we finally hit the open stretch, like, we don't feel like we have anything left to give to the open stretch. But we have to realize, like, no, the road's open. You can get back on the gas. You can do the things you were doing before the curve once again.
Ray says, I believe everyone is navigating their way around the curves. The trick is to be prepared for them, or simply just expect them. I would say every time you have to straightaway, you don't necessarily hit the gas or necessarily put it on cruise control. I'm a big cruise control guy. If it's a 25 mile an hour zone, man, I'm at 29.
I'm too.
I hit the cruise. And that school zone comes up. I have to take it off the cruise. And a lot of times cruise control doesn't work unless you're over
25.
It's bullshit. You should be able to set a cruise at 17 miles an hour, in my opinion.
I agree.
So if any car manufacturers are listening to this podcast, which I'm sure they are, let's fix that going forward. All right. Ray's got a great point there off of Nate's very good explanation. I can appreciate everything he's saying there. It is what Ray's saying on top of what Nate just said. It's, yeah, you're going to expect curves coming up, but it's kind of, man, we're going way deep in this metaphor. Shit. When it's like a straightaway, good scenery and all that stuff, you don't just get complacent. You actually try to appreciate it. You know what I mean? Knowing that there's going to be a time where you're going to have to hit the brakes. You're going to have to do all this stuff. I mean, the driving metaphor is so easy to just slip back into here. But I think I've done some of my best growth when shit has gone wrong.
I think we all have. Yeah,
it's not easy as we get older and have more life experiences. It gets a little easier if you have you work on a mindset to get you through that stuff. But it's just,
well, I'm going to go back to like
Well, I was gonna say, when you're younger, like when you're a teenager or something like that, and something bad happens, you are absolutely destroyed. Life is
Yeah.
over. I'll never get over this. Like someone said something mean to you, and you're like, well, that's
Yeah.
it. Life's over. Never
Yeah.
going back to school. Like, fuck it. You know what I mean? Like, tell mom and dad, just I'll be in my room for the rest of my life. Sorry. That kind of thing. But I think as you get older, you don't want to get callous. You don't want to necessarily drive with your foot on the brake the whole time. But I do think that there are times where you get absolutely knocked down and you get blindsided. Again, sorry to hear about your mom. Hopefully there's some sort of treatment and some sort of growth opportunities there, for her and for you as a family. I mean, it's never easy. It's sad to think that you almost do, as you get older, also expect that, something's like, things are going too good. Something's going to ruin this, right? I mean, there is a mentality there that something is going to ruin this good part of my life. You're in a better place. If I had to compare the two, you're in a better place expecting something to ruin the good times, as shitty as that is, than you would be if you are just cruising through life, not expecting something could go wrong. It's just a mentality. It doesn't mean that you can't enjoy that, but sometimes there is the aspect of my existence. You talk about calling your mom and stuff like that. To this day, I've talked about on the podcast, my mom, she typically does not call me. If I see her calling me, something's wrong, sadly, because she always, oh, you're just so busy. I don't know a good time to call. So I make it a point, typically when I'm driving, just because I'm not distracted by anything else. I can put it on Bluetooth and talk to her when I'm driving for 10, 15 minutes. A lot of times, I'm driving from the shop to the post office or to the gym or something like that, where I'll call her up and we'll have a little catch up at least once a week, usually twice. But I try to stay vigilant in that because, you don't, it's going to happen. If it is typical, your parents go before you, hopefully, right? In a sense, you don't want the other way around ever. But I mean, you want to make sure that you never really regret not reaching out. There's always going to be, I could have spent more time with this person. I could have done more to make this person feel special, parents or otherwise. You have to live your life at the same time. So you have to have a little bit of brevity there, where it's not going to always be that you're just calling this person or, showing, like what you were going back to, Jonathan, back when you brought that up, is that you have the prongs, you have the gloves, like you have to pay attention to all of it and find a little balance.
And that's where, when I was interrupting Nate, sorry. But like, I think what Steve was saying, it kind of hit me with the communication. So if let's say we're doing the 5 prongs of, your life with job, family, friends, whatever, relationship. I think that communication is so key. So if one of these prongs needs extra attention, whether it be your job or your mother or your wife or whatever, it's communicating with the others and maybe telling your friends, hey guys, I might be offline for a little while. I'm dealing with this issue. Or you tell your wife, hey, the job is going to take a lot of time for the next couple of weeks. I've got to really focus on this. Or you tell your job, hey, I've got family stuff going on, or I got something going on with my wife and I need a little bit of time. And I think that communication is absolutely key. I think where we wear ourselves thin is trying to be everything to all the prongs all the time.
Yep.
And I think what you said, between what you and Nate said, I mean, is key. Because you're going to have these things come up where you have to give extra attention to certain areas, and being communicative with the other areas, and not just letting it go. You can't just let your friends go, let your wife go, let your family go to focus on all on one thing. You have to let them know, hey, this is going on. I'm going to have to, reduce some focus on you for a little while and put it on this. And if you're, if you build these relationships, if you've to stick with the metaphor, kept up the maintenance on all these different prongs, then you're going to have a little more leeway, in these areas when things do go bad with one of the areas.
Well, I think to piggyback off of that, you have to have people in your life that are willing to accept that. They have to be willing to accept that they're not the biggest priority, that life happens and you got to put your attention onto other things.
Yeah.
I think sometimes that's what beats some people up is something happens in their life. So they start putting focus to take care of that area. And it's not to neglect the other areas of their life, but then those other areas are like, well, how come we haven't hung out? How come we haven't done anything? How come you haven't been as focused on this? It's like, well, I've been focused on this thing, which at the time seems like a more important issue. I need to address this. But sometimes you have people in your life that don't accept that. And so how do you combat that? How do you get those other people in your life to realize that they're not number one? And it's not necessarily spouses, because I think a lot of spouses or significant others understand that life happens and that sometimes you need to take care of stuff.
Well, I think it goes back to, have you been maintaining those other areas of your life so that when you have to focus on another area, they'll understand because you have been maintaining that. So let's say that, I can't hang out with my friends, or I can't talk to my friends like I have been because I'm focusing on these other two prongs that are going off with red alerts right now. If in the past, 5 years, I have been that friend, I have been that guy, I have been there, then I deserve a break. I deserve deserve some leeway there. And I think I give a lot more importance to that friendship finger of the glove than a lot of people do. It's a very, very important thing to me. And when I feel like I'm letting down my friends to deal with other issues, it's very tough on me. And it's something that hurts me and bothers me. So I think the fact that, I think you've got to understand that you've built it, you've done it. If you have to back away a little bit from certain areas, you have to back away.
No, I agree completely. I mean, shit, man, like even this show, right? I mean, that was not the easiest thing for me to do after 6 years, to say, hey, we're going to go to every other week. And, everyone kind of understood, but then it was kind of a surprise to everyone. It's like, look, like, not really making, we appreciate the support from Patreon and all you guys out there. And, some of the sponsors, I mean, we're not losing money, but we're not making money off of this. So there are people that were like, oh, you're not going to do it every week anymore. It's like, no. And for those of you that, like some of these guys like Ray and, Bobby, you're there as much as you can, but it's like, they're not on every week. So it's like we're not getting paid for this. So like, this is our time and we enjoy it. We get a lot out of this when we have the engagement and all that stuff, but it's like a certain point, it's like, what's the value of your time? Not always necessarily in a monetary standpoint, but are you sacrificing your time for things that aren't giving you value on a regular basis? And in the same right, it's devaluing your time in those other prongs as you're talking about. So doing something that you think is important and, trying to make yourself available, say for your friends or for your job, and then you sacrifice your personal relationship, your romantic relationship, your family relationship, and even your like you brought it up. I know Ray and a couple of people always roll their eyes, but your personal health, right? I mean, you're doing all these things, and it's like, is your employer gonna bat an eye if they just be like, "Yep, no, you're gone. Life goes on." They're gonna be fine without you. As valuable as you think you are, I think 8, 9 times out of 10, the company will go on without you.
Yeah.
Sorry to break it to you. Doesn't mean you're not valuable to them, but at the same time, it's like you're not the most valuable thing, and they have their priorities in a different regard than you do in that perspective. So I look at it as, if you don't communicate, going back to that, if you don't communicate to the parties involved, they will feel neglected, or maybe they're going to feel like they're not the important side of your life. So why? They might not even like go down the road of why. They might just be like, well, they've been slipping lately. They're not really focused on us or me or the company or whatever it might be. It's not the same as it used to be, because you're just, it could be the best intentions. You might be focusing on illness or family illness, or your personal health or friendships. You're there for someone. Well, next thing you know, you haven't communicated that with them, so they're just like, well, they're slipping.
Yeah.
There's no communication there. So how does anyone know? I'm not saying you have to go back to, we talked about it not too long ago. It's like people taking like mental health days and stuff like that. I'm not even going down that road. I'm just like, I look at it even in the last month. It was like, when Kristen had her health issue and all that stuff, it's like, I need coverage. I'm not going to work today.
Yeah.
Sorry. Like, nope, not doing it. Not doing the podcast either. I am not available right now because I have a priority right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a community, but I communicated that. It wasn't, I didn't just call off or just not show up. Hey, this is what's going on. I told Nate, I told Brian at the shop, I told other people. We had a guest that night. Hey, this is what's going on. Everyone understood because I communicated that.
Yeah.
It was a valid reason. I'm not just bullshitting. Hey, I don't feel like coming into work today. I don't feel like this.
But Steve, you had also built up that with your job, with the podcast, with your friends. You had built up a credibility that when you say that you're not going to do it, there's a reason.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Steve texted me. It was after 11 o'clock at night on a Tuesday about what was going on. And he's like, hey, can you cover for me? And he knew that the next day was my day off. It's the one day off a week that I have. But when he's like, hey, here's what's going on. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There was no hesitation for me whatsoever. Like,
right.
Yeah, I will absolutely, I will be there. I will cover for you. Like, I will take, I'll do what needs to be done. So that way you can focus on the priority of the situation in your life at that time. And we even mulled over the idea, because he's like, we'll be back Wednesday. We'll be back at the house. I'm like, dude, no, we're not doing a show. Like,
that was actually Kristen's idea. She's like, actually, we're home. If you want to do the podcast tonight, you can't. And I said, no,
I wasn't going to either, because what was going on. I wasn't going to sit there and go, no, let's have people over at the garage and hang out at Steve's. Meanwhile, Kristen's back there recovering from surgery that same day. Like, no, you got more important things. The podcast can wait.
Yeah.
Hopefully our listeners will understand, and
if they don't, fuck them.
And most of them do. But it's like, no, like, we do this for fun. Like Steve said, we're not making money on this. At best, this thing breaks even. So,
well, Steve, I mean, we had a talk about the every other week thing, and
we did.
I was 100% supportive of it. I think it's better for you and Nate, and I thought it wasn't bad for the podcast. I mean, I think it builds up some, appointment watching when there's every 2 weeks. And look, I mean, it's a schedule. Yeah, and it's a huge burden on you guys every week to try to find guests, to try to find topics, to try to find this and that. And I think it's the right move. And look, there are Wednesdays when I'm home, which are random, that I would really love to sit out and listen to the podcast. And I'm sad, it's an off week. But like, I get it, and I 100% get it. And I'd like to think I'm one of the original, the OGs that have been supporting this for a long time. And but at the end of the day, it's just like every other relationship in your life. Like if you care about the people, you want them to be the healthiest they can be and the best spot they can be.
Right.
And I think this is the best thing for you guys. But I appreciate what this podcast means a lot to me, and I've always enjoyed it. I don't always make it, but when I have availability, like I'm always going to be listening and drinking and smoking along with you guys. And it's a cool family, man, that you guys have created.
That's a great community.
And to that, it also affords our listeners the opportunity as well on every other Wednesday. So every other Wednesday, you guys are listening to us, review a cigar, review a whiskey, and talk about life. And that's great. That's why Steve and Jake started this podcast. But then having, those times off from not doing the show, like you just said, there are some Wednesdays, Jonathan, where you're home, but it's an off week for us where we're not doing a show. Okay. So what are you doing to capitalize on that time and that opportunity? Hopefully you're spending it either bettering yourself, for the job coming forward, or you're bettering yourself at home and you're taking advantage of the time that you're at home with your wife. Like, hey, I don't have to sit out on the patio tonight, smoke cigars and drink. I can spend time with you. And hopefully that's something you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully it's something all of our listeners want to do.
A self-assessment there.
But it's like, okay, it's like, it's not just a thing for us, but it's also something for our listeners. It's an opportunity for them as well to, possibly have some time where they could put some energy and focus into other things, whether
every listener's different
or for other people.
Yeah, and everybody's different. I mean, some people are retired, some people are, working nonstop, and they get a Wednesday open, So it is, everyone's different, but I definitely understand what you're saying, and I think it's I think like going back to the whole subject at hand, like this gives you guys the ability to put a little more time on one prong or the other that you may need to put time on. It could give the listeners the ability to put time on one thing or another. But I mean, just Steve's deal with communication, I think absolutely hit home tonight. And I think that's something that, especially as men that don't always communicate effectively, when you're having an issue on one side or the other, communicating with the other parties is incredibly effective, and it has to be done. I think it's so much easier as a guy to just kind of ghost everyone for a little while and focus on what needs to be focused on. And I don't know, just really hit home. It seems like such an obvious thing, but it really hit home.
Yeah, I think I'm happy to hear that. Absolutely. What I find a lot, I've been guilty of it too, is that when you have a free night in your schedule, you're looking for something to do a lot of times. You're either looking for something to do, or no, I am free that
something
night.
To fill the void.
Fill the void. A lot of times it's for people that have families or significant others or whatever it is. It's like, you're like, oh, I have a free night. That means I'm going to go in this community sometimes. I'm not going to mention any names or anything like that. Like you're doing anything wrong. Everyone's got a different dynamic in their life, but it's like, oh, so Wednesday night, they're not doing a podcast. So that means I'll just go to the cigar shop, or I'll sit on my patio and smoke a cigar. Nate hit it on the head though. And you've talked about this, is that used to be more what you did. Now it's more, might be a good night to spend some time with my family, or maybe I'll go work out. Maybe I'll take a walk. Maybe I'll do something. It doesn't always have to be, I'm going to see what's on Netflix. Nothing wrong with that, right? You need a night off. But you don't always have to fill the voids of neglecting the things that you will eventually, sadly, have a different perspective and realize that you're taking some good things for granted because you were going back to the metaphor of you were just on cruise control and everything's cool and I'll just go do something else. It's like, no, get the value of your time and the people around you. If you have to work a little bit more that night, if you have to talk to and spend some time with a significant other, or, hey, I'm free next Wednesday, just blatantly talking about this podcast. They're not doing it next Wednesday. So I usually listen to podcasts or I tune in or I communicate, whatever it is, next Wednesday. You know, I'm free for a happy hour to go meet up with a friend that I haven't seen in a while. Maybe I'll send them a text and say, hey, you free next Wednesday? You know what
And
I
then
mean?
the next week, you have them come over to the patio and you watch the podcast together.
Right. Yeah. And then we get more listeners. Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
for picking up on that. And then they can be on Patreon. And no, absolutely. No, I'm just saying, like, there's a point where you get so caught in that groove. And when something happens, you weren't prepared for it because you weren't paying attention.
All right. I got a question for you guys.
Go ahead.
So out of the prongs I mentioned, you got the relationship with your significant other, your friends, your job, your family. I don't know. Those 5, I thought. But which one of those is easiest for you to let go of when you're going around a curve? Like, which one is the easiest for you to say, okay, I'll pick up on this later?
Nate, go ahead. No, I was gonna say, even though, like, you know, Ray, I commented back on you about the
health. That was the other one.
That's the easiest.
Yeah.
That's absolutely the easiest.
That's the easiest for you to let go of?
It sucks, but I mean, I still try to. I mean, it's not as easy as some people for me, but it's absolutely the easiest. I don't work out as much. I don't eat as healthy. I don't sleep well. I don't. It's a lot easier for me to focus on those things. When in my past I was single, when I was in a tough spot, that was my therapy. When things are going well and I'm busy, it's tougher to squeeze in those things. If you listen back to the episodes from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, especially, I was taking daily walks. I haven't taken a walk for exercise, smoking a cigar. Occasionally, yes, but on a regular, it's been 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, it's so much easier, but that's because things are going well overall. But when things demand focus elsewhere, it's the easiest to just let myself go. And I think that's fairly common.
Steve, I would have never guessed that with you, though. I thought that would be the one you would cling to.
It doesn't mean that I let it go completely. To comment on that, I don't necessarily turn on people. I know I need my job. So I've been in jobs before, even in this job, which I love, this career I'm in right now. There are times that I get pissed about something.
Yeah.
Typically it's not necessarily customers. It's just like, even working in a cigar shop, there are tensions will run high for different reasons. And a lot of times I'm of the opinion it's because of outside factors coming into work, which I think is universal for a lot of jobs, right? But I'd never neglect it completely. I don't just start calling off or, you know, doing all that stuff. And when it comes to family, I'm certain parts of my family, you know, I don't necessarily put as much effort into as much. I've made a bigger effort recently. I'm trying to put more effort into a relationship with, like, my brother. Not that it was bad; it was just kind of complacent.
Right.
My fiance and I, Kristen and I, there's been a hyper focus, healthy, in my opinion, hyper focus on making sure the communication stays alive, having those tough conversations. So I would say, going from working out and eating super healthy, working out 5 days a week and eating very clean. I don't do that as often. I'll work out 3-4 days a week. I know it sounds stupid to a lot of people, but I'll also eat a little bit less healthy, still healthy compared to a lot of diets probably, but, like, I don't have a 6-pack anymore. You know, I don't, you know, it's not.
I'm never coming back to Columbus then, man. That's why I came back.
All right, we'll get back to it then.
Still look good in your vacation photos.
Thanks, man. It's great lighting down in the DR. No, but I'm just saying, I think that's the biggest thing. I relax a little bit if I need to focus elsewhere. But to your actual question is, when things like a sharp curve happens and shit's in the fan, you're right. That is my therapy. So I guess I looked at that question a little differently, is that the first thing I'll neglect when things are going well is myself a little bit. And I think that's why I addressed this topic originally like I did. You get complacent driving down the road when it's smooth sailing, you know, and that's when you're not prepared for it.
Now, I wanted to know what you neglect when things are going badly. When you have a lot of curves, what do you neglect at that point? That was the question.
I think I go back to Nate's example of that road. That's a tough one. I feel like that's when I'm at my best. It sucks because it's like I get hyper focused. I get hyper determined.
So you're hyper focused on your friends, your family.
Everything. Yeah, when things are bad, I focus on everything.
I love it. No, that's amazing.
Yeah. That is a high alert. It's hyper focused. It's sad. I think I'm my best self when something's going wrong.
Yeah. I could see that. Nate, what is yours, man?
I don't know that I have one particular aspect that
what falls off when you're stressed, when you're going through a lot?
I'll say from a broad perspective is communication.
Shut down.
There was actually a study done recently where
on you?
Not me.
No, all right.
But it was discovered that when men talk about what's going on negatively in their life, that's when they become most stressed. When they're not talking about it, they're less stressed about it. And so if I'm going down the road and I've, got this sharp curve coming from work, and then I've got this switchback coming from home life, and then it's back to work, and then it's back to home life. Like if you have multiple aspects of your life that are punching you left and right day after day or week after week, that's when you're traveling the slowest, and it feels like you're not getting anywhere, you're not getting ahead, and it makes you feel worse about yourself. Because I've had those times where, and I'll be honest, I've had those times recently where things weren't going great at home, things weren't going great at work, and so I just closed up because I didn't.
What about with your friends? What about with your family?
See, that's the hard thing for me. Those other aspects, because where your analogy and Steve talking about it, like you guys are driving Tail of the Dragon in sports cars with 4 wheels. There are times I feel like I'm on that road on a motorcycle with 2 wheels.
Yeah.
Brother,
that's what I'm getting to, man. I'm getting to.
I've got work and I've got home life.
That's what I'm getting to. That's what I'm talking about.
Those, like my work and my home life, those are the 2 big ones.
That's 90% for you.
Because honestly, I don't have, and it's been this way for many years. I don't have a lot of friends that are close in proximity, mileage wise, to me. I mean, Steve's my best friend. He lives on the other side of town from me. My next best friend lives an hour north.
Brother, all my friends live 5 and 7 states away, so I know what you're saying.
Like I dealt with that back when I was getting married and we were having a wedding, and I had to find 3 groomsmen. And I was like, okay, my 3 groomsmen, one lives in Cincinnati, one lives in DC. Who else am I going to pick? Because that was my life at that time.
Yeah.
You know, back when I was getting ready to get married, I had 2 close friends, but none of them were close necessarily in proximity to me. And that was one of the reasons why my father ended up being my best man at my wedding.
That was a good pick, though.
It was a good pick.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah, it's never a bad pick.
No.
Um,
Well, he framed it. You're like, eh,
well, no, it was kind of interesting because when I look at it from a bird's eye view, I had my father as my best man. Even though my parents divorced when I was 6, my father was still a very important part of my life. He was there. I would spend every other weekend and Wednesday nights with him. So he was always part of my life. He always came to my sporting events. So it's not like he was out of the picture. He was always still there. So he was my best man. And my stepfather, who was the pastor that I grew up with, he was the one officiating our wedding. And I always used to talk. He was that example to me growing up, especially as a teenager, of what a man should be. So I learned, in a sense, I feel blessed in that sense because I had a father who was there that I had a great relationship with and still have a great relationship with, although it could be better. But then I also had my stepfather who was a role model to me. And, I grew up.
So when you talk about that you're kind of two-pronged and two-willed, I mean, family is clearly another one.
Well, but that's the thing. Like, I don't talk a whole lot with my cousins.
But if family is your dad, your stepdad. I know your stepdad passed away. I'm sorry.
Yes. Recently I was reaching out to my mom because my mom lives in Florida, and she just evacuated yesterday her home and went to the East Coast of Florida because of the hurricane coming in. Last month I had an aunt that passed away, and my sister's the executor of the state, and I'm one of the 5 people named in the will. And honestly, I've been communicating with my sister more in the month since then than probably the year before that.
Brings people together, sadly.
Because now we've got all these issues that we got to take care of, and how do we handle this stuff? And, showed up at my aunt's house, and, it was weird. When I first showed up at my aunt's house after she passed, it was a neighbor that was talking to my sister. So I was kind of hanging back a little bit until he left. And then my sister came up to me and she goes, "I'm so glad you're here because this particular family member is pissing me off and I'm about to lose my shit." And I'm
love family and holidays.
And I'm like, okay, what's going on? I start going into the analytical science side of me. I'm like, okay, what's going on? What's happening? Like, okay, this is what's going on. I got you. And so we start going through the house, and that family member wants to kind of intrude and, be a presence. It's like, no. At one point, like, this family member came up and was like, "Hey, I brought you guys this." I'm like, no. Becky's got this. Like, she's got it. We're going through this. We're going to do it step by step, room by room. Like, we're going to do this. Like, just let us do it. Back off. Just let us do it. And so, like, I started taking charge a little bit and communicating and being more open than I normally am. People see me at the podcast. They see me in the cigar shop. They see me in my regular job. And I come across like a very open guy, but behind the scenes, I'm a very closed in person, kind of walled off a little bit, but I'm there for the people that mean something to me when they need me. And that situation came up and I was like, all right, what do you need? Okay, gotcha. I can do that. You need me to be the middle guy? I can do that. You need me to be able to tell someone off? I am absolutely that guy. Because, there comes a point in time where sometimes you just don't give a fuck. You don't necessarily want to ruin relationships, but it's like, no, we got this. Let us do what we need to do. Let me, from a personal standpoint, let me do what I need to do. I know what I need to do. I can get through this. I appreciate you being there, but sometimes those other people, quote unquote, being there is not a benefit. Sometimes because of the way they are, the way you are, it can come across as a hindrance, because they kind of want to be a little too involved. It's like, no, let me, I don't need you pushing me. Let me do this. I got people around me that can help me get through this and can lead. And I think Bobby was talking about it, can help lead and pull me through this situation. I don't necessarily need you from behind pushing me at a pace I'm not comfortable with. Just let me deal with this the way that is comfortable to me, that I can deal with this. And it's the same thing, so like I said, my sister and I, we've communicated more in the last month than we have in the last year. And unfortunately, it took a family member passing to get to that point. But it was one of those things that actually spurred that relationship a little bit, to where it's like, now we're trying to be there for each other. So now it's like taking it from a 2-wheel motorcycle to a trike.
Yeah.
A little bit.
There's a little bit more challenge you, but I challenge you to continue that. And it's so weird. Like, some deaths in our families, like, along the years, have rekindled relationships.
Well, I'll tell you what, I am 100% sure that if my mom still lived in town, her and I would be closer. We'd communicate a lot more. Now that my mom is 5 states away, there's a disconnect there, kind of. And, I reached out to her recently because of the storms that are coming into her area. Her and I were actually she was in town last Wednesday, and her and I were supposed to meet up for lunch. And, unfortunately, something happened with Steve where I had to go work at the shop. And so I was like, hey, I'd love to meet up with you for lunch, but here's what's going on. I can't. Like, I gotta be there for Steve and help him out going through this. And, that was one of those things where it's not that Steve's more important than my mother. It's just
circumstances.
The circumstances of what was going on. I needed to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to have the same priorities. If you sat there and listed your priorities in life right now, they're not going to be the same priorities 5 years from now. Things are going to change. Life is going to happen. You're going to put more value in things.
I think some of us, though, we kind of have categories, that we always prioritize, for good or for bad. And you've already mentioned, like, it's your job and your spouse, and those are your two that are probably in 5 years still going to be your number one priorities.
It's not necessarily. So that's the other thing. Like I was just saying, it's not necessarily that certain things are number one and number two priorities. Sometimes other things happen where they become more of a priority than some of those issues. And you have to be willing to adapt from, say, driving on the road on a motorcycle to driving on the road in a car.
Lean more on the motorcycle.
4 wheels, you have more stability than you do 2 wheels. 2 wheels, it's easier for other things to replace and become a priority. And so you have to be able to adapt to what those issues are.
It's my turn. You guys are doing great. I enjoyed it. I was listening. Putting out the banner of closing remarks didn't mean that you have to stop talking.
So, okay. So I'll do mine.
Sure.
So, like, when Jonathan first started talking about, like, the 4 prongs.
5 with the glove.
Well,
4 prongs.
Like, and I kind
more fingers, I think, in the glove.
There's a lot of analogies going on.
Yeah, I kind of alluded to it as well
Bring
about
up the car again.
the cars. You have 4 wheels on the road. Each one of those wheels may be a prong or one of those aspects of your life.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily like things get a flat, where one suffers, now you got a flat tire and like something overcompensates. I started to, and even though I'm not a big F1 fan, one of the things that's so amazing about like F1 versus NASCAR. F1, they can sit there, they can control the suspension of every single wheel, the downforce of the front wing, the rear wing. That driver can control every single aspect of the car. And they can sit there and push that car past its limits and, handle every single curve at a high rate of speed. NASCAR is a little bit more finesse. There was actually a NASCAR driver goes, yeah, you take a NASCAR driver, put him in an F1 car, within a couple days, he's competing with F1 drivers.
Oh, you're going to piss off some F1 fans. If
You put an F1 driver in a NASCAR,
We're going to start a holy war here.
They can't, because it takes more finesse to be able to drive that car, because they can't sit there and change all those, minute aspects on the fly. So that's so life sometimes is kind of like that F1 car where you can put more focus on one particular wheel going into a corner or coming out of a corner. You can sit there and change, what gets the most attention based on the road ahead of you. Because in a lot of those races, there's a lot of left and right turns. There's a lot of sharp curves in those roads. They're not driving flat out all the time, because most F1 races are not on an oval track. Everyone makes fun of NASCAR because, all you got to do to be able to drive NASCAR is be able to turn left. It's like, well, there's some of that, but also if you look at how cars change position from start to finish, there's a lot more complexity that goes on to that. You need to be a better driver in being able to drive the car you have on the course you have. And there's not, I think we're fortunate when it comes to life that we can put more attention and more focus onto what wheels we have on the ground. And that's the important thing, is you have to be willing to be able to make those changes as life happens. Because if you just drive if you put a NASCAR on a track with an F1 car, that dude ain't making it. He's not making top 10. Like he's going to get lapped because his car is not built for that track. You have to be willing to adapt to the road ahead of you, whatever it throws at you. But then at the same time, as I brought up earlier, when you come out of those switchbacks left and right, and all of a sudden you get on a straightaway, you have to be willing to put your foot on the gas and go. Otherwise, you're going to get lapped. You're going to get passed. You're going to see other people putting their foot on the gas and passing you and having success in different aspects of their life. And now suddenly you're going to be envious of what they have. And now you're like, well, shit, that person's passing me. Like, they're doing better than I am. I can't catch up to them. Well, is it because you don't have the vehicle to catch up to them? Or is it because you're not putting your foot on the gas? Like, sometimes we hold ourselves back from coming out of those sharp curves. And I think there's a lot of us that have that hesitancy to do that. And we need to do a better job of when things are going bad, focus on the bad, sure. But then when things are going better, cool. Now you can do better. Now you can get back into things. Now you can, now maybe you have time to do the things and focus on the things that you need to in order to better the other aspects of your life. And that was something that happened recently where I had a couple issues in life that I was struggling with, multiple aspects. And then all of a sudden one aspect got better. And that positivity from that aspect all of a sudden poured into another, where now things were then going better in that one. So it's like, okay, what do I do? Go with it. Put your foot on the gas and go like, okay, now things are going well. Go.
It's happy Nate. I don't know what to do with. I tell you. It's like it's a different show. I like it.
I like it too.
It's weird though, right, Jonathan? It's weird.
It's not comfortable.
Yeah, I feel uncomfortable as well. Happy Whiskey Wednesday, everyone. No, it's good to see you like that, Nate. I was going to say the same thing about the F1 and NASCAR example. So, Jonathan, go ahead. I got to regroup.
Mine's pretty simple, and I pretty much already said it. But I think my biggest learning of tonight is, if you have 4 or 5 different areas in your life that are all important to you, and you're hitting roadblocks in a couple of the areas, and you're having a tough time communicating with the other areas of your life is huge. And the fact that you've built up traction there, and you've been consistent, and you've done the right things, and you put yourself in good position, should give you the leeway to sometimes let a couple of things slide a little bit until you need to get back. And I think communicating, and whether it be telling your wife, hey, I have to focus on my job for the next couple of weeks, or telling your friends, hey, I have to focus on my wife for the next couple of weeks, or whatever it is, keeping all these areas of your life strong when things are going well, so that when things do go badly, you can shift priorities and shift focus and still keep everything afloat is so important. But I think, I generally do a pretty good job of keeping all those areas afloat. I don't necessarily do a great job of communicating with all the areas when something's struggling. And I think that's something I can do better at. And it was a nice wake up call today, even though Nate nor Steve answered my question about what do you let go when things are going badly. Steve said nothing. Nate said nothing.
It's an answer.
Those
are answers.
Hold on.
What do you let go?
I explained that I feel like my life is more on a motorcycle than a 4-wheel car. If I'm on a motorcycle and drop a wheel, I'm fucked. If you're on a car and all of a sudden one of your tires goes flat, you can still make it around the curves.
Steve, what do I let go? I would say friends even though it's so important to me, that's the one I'll let go with communication with. If my family's suffering, if my personal life's suffering, if my job's suffering, that's the one. And it's so funny because I think you would look at me and say friends might be like a priority in my life. And I would look at you and say your personal health is a priority in your life. And we both said those are kind of the things we sometimes let go of. And I thought that was really interesting. I don't know.
Well, I think that it might be yours and our relationship as friends that started as professional,
right?
There is a difference of your friends that you grew up with or you talk to all the time. Yeah, absolutely. You let that lapse, right? But there's a safety sometimes where there's a little bit of a middle ground there. So the perspective is that we've hung out in certain aspects, and we've known each other for a while now. But I know personally that when things are going wrong, there are times that in this venue that maybe you haven't talked to some of your friends in a long time, but with our relationship, we have some heart to hearts. And from, sometimes with distance, the perspective is different. And I think the people that see you every day, they don't see the growth or the struggle sometimes that you're going through, because if you see that person every day and they just present themselves a certain way, they see what you want them to see. I think that might be part of it. I think that absolutely is a big part of it, is that there's less invested sometimes with some relationships, friendships, and everything, that you see the distance, and you have this perspective or this idea of a person in your life that you're not as close or intimate with. It's easier to, when things are going poorly, you can vent to that person, because there is, as close as, Jonathan, you and I are, Nate and I are, we still don't talk every day. We still aren't that. There's this little bit of a separation, even though there's a closeness and a intimate relationship as far as a friendship. It's still not like we didn't grow up together.
Right.
We're not the everyday friends, and I've learned as I've gotten older, that is probably more of a natural thing, that you don't have as many everyday friends, but it doesn't take away from the importance of that relationship.
Yeah.
It's actually easier to talk to someone in the capacity that a lot of us in this Bourbon and BS community page, this whole podcast realm, it's easier to have heart to hearts with the people in this realm than it is people that you see on a day-to-day basis. I think.
Yeah, I get that. And somehow it means a little more sometimes. You know, those
I think
reaching out. When you've reached out to me through some difficulties in my life, and hopefully when I've reached out to you and some difficulties in yours, like there's been a special meaning to it, because we're not that day-to-day friend. We're not that everyday see you everyday friend. So the fact that you're thinking about me, or worrying about me with what I'm going through, or I'm worrying about you with what you're going through from 5 states away or whatever, that might, that does have a little extra meaning to it.
Well, the people that are on here listening, it's Sean Anderson, it's Bobby Crow, it's Ray Cheshire. It's like there's a lot of distance there, and there is an importance, because we all think of each other very with high regard. I think of some of the people that listen to this show that are regulars on this show. We all value each other. We all have that high regard for people, but we don't talk every day. You know what I mean? But when it comes down to it, we probably talk more often through this show and through this community than most people do with their quote everyday friends of substance.
Yeah.
Of substance. That's the key.
Or even family
as well. My closing remarks. Great episode. It feels like forever since we've done this. It does, because we were used to doing it every week. So I'll say this about the sharp curves ahead. There are let's go back to the whole metaphor of the car driving down the road, right? You want to make sure your communication is strong, your preventative maintenance on the vehicle is good. Like you're taking care of what's important. Take care of yourself first and foremost. And the passengers in your car, your navigator, the person in your shotgun seat, it needs to be the right person. If shit's going really bad, Nate, you brought that up.
Now you're talking about rally driving.
All right. F1, NASCAR, now rally. I'm not going that deep in the metaphor. I'm saying the passengers in your car, your navigator is, shotgun. Sometimes you have to pick new people to be in your car. You do. Things get bad enough, you got to drive down a different road. You do. Sucks. But sometimes you have to take a different path. You really have to negotiate of where you want to go in life, and sometimes you're not expecting it. And I think that's the
Detours.
no, not even detour, just a totally different path, different road. You're going the wrong direction, and it sucks to realize you're going the wrong direction.
Yeah, because you've gone so far one way.
Yeah, I've said it before on this show. the choose your own adventure books that used to be a thing, right? I think it's a great example for life.
Take me
If
back
you had
to
a book,
elementary
man,
school
oh yeah,
library.
I'm so sad the children today don't have choose your own adventure books, because and we all, you know, if you want to do this, go to page 47. If you choose this, go to page 139, and you read both of those options, and they knew
Oh
you
yeah.
were going to do it. Those are some of the greatest writers of our time, and no one gets credit for that. No one gets credit for that, because you read page 49, you read page 137, you're like, 137 is a safe way to go, and so you're like, I'll go to 137, and you read that page, and then you're fucked after that.
Yeah, because then
You're like, that's
oh,
the safe one. Like, that's the one to go to. 49 looks like crazy. Like, no, I'm not going to go down there. And all of a sudden, yeah, I'm not going to. But it's like, I'm not going to go that route, but I'm going to keep going down this path because that seems safe. That's the right way to go. And it's because you checked both. You didn't follow your gut. You didn't listen to yourself. You didn't have the self-assessment. You didn't have communication with everyone. This is the path that you think you're supposed to take. And that's when you're typically screwed. And everyone in the car, everyone in your life is just riding your safe train, which it eventually will probably suck. You're going to get tired of it. They're going to get tired of it. You're not listening to yourself. You're not listening to people around you. You're trying to make the right decision, not out of what you feel or what your educated guess is. You're like, I want the answers. I want them fed to me. And it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You got to make your own life. You got to make your own path. You got to make sure that you're enjoying the ride. And that's, Jonathan, when you asked, what do you neglect the most? And my answer was real. It was nothing. I think that I am the most attentive when things are failing.
Right.
And I think that I won't speak for everyone, but I think there are a lot of people that will listen to this that may agree with me, is that when things are going well, if you can duplicate that mentality and translate that to when things are going well, that you are going to be your most attentive, you're going to be your most hyper focused. That's the best thing that you can do in your life. You can appreciate the people in your life. You can appreciate your job. You can appreciate the roof over your head. It's not being complacent. It's also not just waiting for the next best thing. It's not waiting for the real happiness to come. It's, I'm happy now. What got me here? What's making me happy now? And what will make me and my circle around me happy going forward? And when shit goes down, like what's going on with you, Jonathan, and your mom, when something happens with my family, when not more than 2 weeks ago, I know it seems silly, but like when Kristen was in there, hyper focused.
Yeah.
That was your only care.
That's it.
Yeah, brother.
Could have gone bad.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really, the cone gets really small in moments like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sometimes a beautiful thing. It's just like what Nate was talking about with his aunt dying and his sister needing him for a moment. Like the cone got super small there. Like Nate said, this is my role right here. This is what I'm trying, this is what I'm here for. And when that cone gets super small, it's eye-opening.
Yeah, you never know what's going to hit.
Yeah.
I was scared 2 weeks ago, and it's good now.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm ready to enjoy it. I'm ready for the next one. Let's go.
Yeah.
Cheers, everyone. Happy Wisconsin.
Love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you for everything. We're gonna have you back on, Jonathan, very soon, hopefully. No.
I would love to. I would love to.
All right. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, guys.